Chapter 764. Mu Hongshun. The statue that was worshipped in this ancient temple was actually Mu Hongshun. This was something that Sumo and Yi Wuhui could never have imagined. The statue was 7 feet tall, and its entire body was emitting a faint brilliance. Mu Hongshun's appearance was vivid and lifelike, as if she was a living person. Even her eyes were similar to Mu Hongshun's in the past, majestic and sharp. However, there was a hint of mercy in them. The red dress she was wearing was even more special. It was covered with magical runes. Most of them were runes of the first life, immortal level, and a few were actually runes of the reincarnation level. The entire statue was carved from a single piece of supreme-grade spirit stone. In the dust sift 3 realms, this statue could be considered a priceless treasure. If this statue was not destroyed by external forces, it could last for tens of thousands of years. This could be considered unparalleled in the current dust sift 3 realms. But who was the one who built this ancient temple? And who was the one who made this statue for Mu Hongshun? Sumo and Yi Wuhui had questions in their hearts. At that moment, the core formation female cultivator in front of him began to worship. That female cultivator was actually worshiping her mother. Her mother was immortal. The peaches were planted by her mother, and the embroidered shoes were made by her mother. Moreover, she offered them to Lady Hongshun without asking for anything. She just wanted to thank Lady Hongshun for keeping this place safe. Worshipping without asking for anything? Such a thing did not seem to happen often. In fact, many so-called believers came to worship because they had something to ask for. Little brother, aren't you going to worship Lady Hongshun? The nascent soul male cultivator behind Sumo said to Sumo. That was because the female cultivator in front of them had finished worshipping, but Sumo did not move. Oh, Sumo smiled. I'm not going to worship. Please go ahead. Sumo took 2 steps forward and gave way. However, he went straight into the main hall. His gaze swept to the 2 sides of Mu Hongshun's statue. That was because there was a cultivator sitting cross-legged on each side of the statue. They were a man and a woman, and both of them looked middle-aged. The early stage of the world-breaking realm. The 2 cultivators sat there quietly. However, when Sumo's gaze fell on them, they were stunned. The 2 cultivators couldn't help but open their eyes. That was because they felt a sense of oppression. Although the oppressive feeling he gave off was very gentle, they immediately realized that this cultivator in cyan robes was not ordinary. Fellow Taoists, Sumo smiled faintly. Inadvertently, Sumo had already set up a barrier. At this moment, in the eyes of the worshipping cultivators, there was no change in the hall. They couldn't see Sumo at all, let alone hear their voices. Greetings, Senior. The 2 Breakworld cultivators quickly stood up and bowed to Sumo. They couldn't see Sumo's realm because the difference was too great. You don't have to be so polite. Sumo smiled. I want to ask you about something. Is that convenient? Senior, please speak. The male cultivator said. Is the statue you worship the former leader of the Red Dust sect, Mu Hongshun? Sumo said. Oh. When the 2 early-stage Break-World cultivators heard Sumo's words, they were shocked. In Nostalgia City, there were only the 2 of them who knew that Lady Red Dust was the leader of the Red Dust sect 3 million years ago. The male cultivator didn't answer Sumo's question. Instead, he asked, Senior, you are? Ha! Sumo smiled. You don't have to worry about anything. Back then, I was a loose cultivator who traveled to the Dust World. At that time, there were 7 stars in the Dust World. The Red Dust sect and the Feather Kingdom sect controlled it together. Now, I've returned to the old place, but I find that things are different. I happened to see this old temple and saw many people worshipping it. That's why I asked. Oh. The 2 cultivators nodded their heads before releasing a long sigh. It seems that Senior hasn't been to the Dust World for at least 3 million years. The male cultivator said, Actually, it's a long story. 3 million years ago, the Red Dust sect and the Feather Kingdom fought. Then, there was a big calamity. The Dust World today is unrecognizable. We are indeed worshipping the Red Dust sect's sect master. However, the people now call her Lady Red Dust. Aside from the 2 of us, no one else in Nostalgia City knows about that history. Oh, Sumo was shocked. Why? Because the cultivators back then were all dead. Moreover, they deliberately didn't mention that history when they were alive. The former fifth star of the dust world was renamed the Red Dust Star. If the two of us die, no one will know about the past. Deliberately forgotten? Sumo asked. Yes, the male cultivator sighed. Because my master once said that we can't become the second monster sealing continent. Who are the two masters? Sumo said. Sima Yunyan, the male cultivator said. The right patrol envoy of the Red Dust sect. Sima Yunyan? Sumo was shocked. That's right. The cultivator looked at Sumo in surprise. It seems that Senior is really old-fashioned. The people of the Red Dust world only know Lady Red Dust. They don't know Sima Yunyan anymore. Oh, Sumo was surprised, not knowing what he meant. Senior, you don't know. The war back then consumed a lot of energy. Master was lucky to survive and return to the Red Dust Star. Then, she went into seclusion for 200 years and finally broke through to the immortal realm. However, she didn't participate in the Demon Sealing War and left the Red Dust sect. Sect leader Jean of the Red Dust sect came to the Red Dust Star 3 times to invite Master out, but she refused. Why did left envoy Sima refuse? Sumo asked. The first reason was that my master was a little disheartened. The second reason was that she didn't agree to the Demon Sealing War. She has always been grateful to Sect Leader Mu. She said that if Sect Leader Mu hadn't saved her, she would have died. She would never forget Sect Leader Mu's kindness. The Demon Sealing Continent belongs to Sect Leader Mu. How could she kill him? This statue was built for Lady Red Dust, and that's how Nostalgia City was built. Her whole life? Sumo raised her eyebrows. Yes, the male cultivator said. Master is long gone. How long has she passed away? Sumo asked. 100,000 years. The male cultivator said. She died of natural causes when she was going through the 5 signs of decay. Because she didn't want to succeed. Why? Sumo didn't understand. Master said that her death is equivalent to taking away the darkest part of the past. Everyone in the Red Dust sect should be responsible for the dust world today. The female cultivator said. She warned us that we don't have to diligently pursue cultivation. The great Tao is endless. What's the limit? She said that if we have the ability, we should ensure the safety of the world. That's enough. Sigh. Yi Wuhui heard their words and couldn't help but sigh. Sima Yunyan was enlightened in the end. Hee. Sumo replied in her divine sense. It's this kind of enlightenment that brought the 5th star to its current state. Otherwise, this would be the second demon sealing continent. Both of you mentioned sect leader Jean. Is he the former left patrol officer of the Red Dust sect? Zheningbu? Sumo said. That's right. It's him. The male cultivator said. Which star is he on now? Sumo asked. 2 million years ago, he was on the 2nd star of Dustnet. Now, we don't know if he's still there. There's no news between the 3 stars, but we know that the star was renamed No Return. Chapter 765. The Star of No Return. Sumo was sitting on the demonic ship in the galaxy. Beside her was Yi Wuhui, who was playing with the little white pig. He Yuhong didn't fly out at all. They didn't stop at Nostalgia City, because the 2 disciples of Sima Yunyan didn't know anything about Mu Hongxin. All they knew was what Sima Yunyan told them. And from a statue that Sima Yunyan made for Mu Hongxin, she probably didn't see Mu Hongxin after that. So, Sumo left the Red Dust planet and went straight to the Star of No Return. Red Dust. No Return. Yi Wuhui picked up the little white pig and couldn't help but smile. Sumo, although Sima Yunyan tried his best to erase the great tribulation of the stars, he still remembers the old kindness. So he changed the name of the 5th planet to Red Dust. And the Star of No Return is most likely the name Zhen Ingbu changed. It seems that he is determined not to return to the Red Dust galaxy. Probably. Sumo nodded. This time, I hope that Zhen Ingbu is alive. He went to invite Sima Yunyan back then. That means that he is the leader of the Red Dust sect after the great tribulation of the stars. He should know the most. Sumo, what if Zhen Ingbu is also dead? Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo and asked. If he is dead? Sumo frowned, then said slowly. Then I will search the 3 stars. If in the end, I still can't find her, I will go to the divine Peacock Mountain in the Prajna world. Even if she can't be reincarnated, Yi Wu Hui said. Yes. Sumo nodded. Good. Yi Wu Hui smiled and nodded. No matter what, I will accompany you. Sumo looked in the direction of the star of no return and didn't say anything. This time, the demonic ship was very fast. In the meantime, Sumo even made it perform a space jump. The planet of no return was right in front of him. Right at that moment, Sumo raised her brows. A flying ship. Yi Wu Hui looked into the distance. The little white pig bared its fangs and brandished its claws. This guy was a warmonger. However, Sumo hadn't used it for a long time. At this moment, the demonic ark had already arrived at the outer realm of the planet of no return. 2 black flying ships were parked about 10 kilometers in front of the demonic boat. They seemed to be intercepting Sumo. Hee. Sumo couldn't help but laugh. Those 2 flying ships could not be compared to the main battleships of Red Dust and Feather Roar. However, they were still very mighty in the void at this moment. Didn't they say that there are no airships in the 3-star world? Weren't the people of the monster-sealing continent afraid of ships? I thought the immeasurable ship was here, Yi Wu Hui said. A frog in a well. Most of the cultivators who sealed the continent were judging others by their own standards. Isn't the Red Dust star different from the monster-sealing continent? Sumo sneered. Now that I think about it, although this planet of no return is not as strong as the Red Dust star and Feather Roar, it should still have some fighting power. At this moment, a small boat was released from one of the flying ships. The boat was extremely fast. In an instant, it was only 100 meters away from Sumo's demonic boat. There were only 2 cultivators on the boat. They were both mid-stage soul-burying cultivators. They looked like 2 outposts. These 2 outposts were mid-stage soul-burying cultivators. Compared to the monster-sealing continent and the Red Dust star, they seem to be a level higher. May I ask where you 2 esteemed guests are from? One of the soul-burying cultivators was extremely polite. We're from the Red Dust star. Sumo smiled faintly. The Red Dust star? The soul-burying cultivator was slightly stunned. He immediately bowed and smiled. The planet of no return has no contact with the Red Dust star. Since you 2 are from the Red Dust star, please return. The planet of no return does not welcome any cultivators. The soul-burying cultivator's tone was very firm. Oh, Sumo was also stunned. Then she smiled. The planet of no return does not allow any cultivators to visit? I wonder who made this rule. This is the rule of the sect of no return, the soul-burying cultivator said. Now, the entire planet of no return is under the jurisdiction of the sect of no return? Sumo said. That's right. The soul-burying cultivator said. The sect of no return rules the entire planet of no return. Therefore, we have the right to do so. Who is your sect master? Sumo asked again. The sect of no return serves under sect master Zhubu Rong. Zhubu Rong. Sumo looked at Yi Wu Hui. Yi Wu Hui shook his head. They had never seen such a cultivator in the past. In that case, help me pass on a message that an old friend of the Red Dust sect has come to visit. I hope that sect master Zhu can take the time to meet him. Sumo said. I'm sorry. The soul-burying cultivator said apologetically. Our sect master has never seen visitors from outside the planet. For the sect of no return, there is no such thing as an old friend of the Red Dust star. There is no need to pass on your message. Sumo couldn't help but frown when she heard this. You, a soul-burying cultivator, can actually be the sect master's leader? Don't you need to ask for permission? Of course not. The soul-burying cultivator said respectfully. However, this is all according to the sect master's instructions. Therefore, there's no need to ask for permission again. Sumo laughed helplessly. Fine. In that case, I'll go see your sect master directly. Why is this sect of no return so special? The path of the planet of no return seems to be different. The soul-burying cultivator was slightly stunned. However, in the next instant, he felt that he couldn't move. His boat was frozen in space by Sumo. Sumo's demon boat swayed forward and passed the two soul-burying cultivators' boats. At that moment, the two flying ships behind them moved. They noticed that Sumo's boat was flying over. They wanted to stop it and even prepare to attack. On the bow of the two flying ships, there was a middle-stage break world cultivator. It seemed that they were the commanders of the two flying ships. They were the highest-level cultivators that Sumo and Yi Wuhui had seen since they returned. Although Sumo had felt that there were sea destruction cultivators on the sealed continent, she hadn't seen them. However, the two middle-stage break world cultivators were useless in front of Sumo. "Greetings, you two." Sumo smiled at them gently. "Huh?" The two middle-stage break world cultivators were shocked. Before they could understand what was going on, they felt their vision go black. At that moment, Sumo's demon eye opened. How could the two middle-stage break world cultivators resist it? They had been instantly controlled by Sumo. "You two, please lead the way. I want to go to the headquarters of the sect of no return and see your sect leader Zhu." Sumo smiled. As soon as Sumo's voice fell when he looked again, the two flying ships turned around. At that moment, everyone on the flying ships had been controlled by Sumo's god soul. They were like puppets. However, Sumo didn't take their souls. "Set sail. Return." The two break world commanders shouted at the same time. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two flying ships activated their formations and headed straight for the planet of no return. Sumo drove the demon boat and followed them. At the same time, he waved his hand and threw the two soul-burying cultivators onto one of the flying ships. Otherwise, with their cultivation level and only a small boat, they would definitely die in the interstellar space after a long time. "Huh?" Yi Wuhui smiled and said, "Sumo, with your current level, if you want to, can you control all the cultivators on the planet of no return?" "Of course." Sumo smiled and said, "But that is meaningless. I don't want to turn them into puppets." "Yes." Yi Wuhui nodded and said, "If the Patriarch thought that way, that would be great. Actually, I don't understand why the Patriarch likes to turn everyone into puppets. The Three Realms ghost genius. Maybe he wanted something else." Sumo sighed and said, "I don't believe that he really wanted to build a puppet world. After all, a puppet world is lonely." "Actually, I miss him," Yi Wuhui said. "Yes." Sumo looked at Yi Wuhui and thought for a moment. "Miss Yi, I will help you find him, as long as he is still in the Yizong world." "Thank you." Yi Wuhui looked at the starry sky and nodded. Wow! The two flying ships opened the way. Sumo and the others went straight to the continent of no return. Chapter 766. Planet No Return was the second planet of Dustnet. It was the only planet left behind by the Featherchi sect. During the Big Calamity, it had been occupied by the left patrol fleet of the Red Dust sect and the front patrol fleet. In terms of preserved combat power, it had been number one. The No Return sect was the sect that controlled planet No Return. At first, it had two fleets of the Red Dust sect as its base. However, after nearly 2 million years, the traces of the Red Dust sect were very faint. The No Return sect was the No Return sect. The purpose of the No Return sect was to never return to the other two planets of the Red Dust sect. That was the teaching of their ancestors when they had established their sect. As for why, not many people knew. The No Return sect's headquarters was in the northwest of planet No Return. There were mountains there, and there were tens of thousands of peaks. It was a strange place. However, the main peak was called Returning Cloud. It was a flat peak. It had a radius of 12 miles. There was a palace on it called Returning Cloud. The Returning Cloud Palace on Returning Cloud Peak was a landmark building of planet No Return. At this time, the two interstellar flying ships had flown into the inner space of planet No Return. The No Return sect immediately discovered them. They were curious. The two flying ships had been stationed in outer space all year round. Why had they suddenly returned? Between the peaks, 7 battleships immediately rose into the air. They formed a fan shape and blocked the two flying ships in the air. "Huh!" Sumo laughed. The No Return sect reacted in time. They are well-trained. They have a bit of the temperament of the Red Dust sect and the Featherchi sect, said Yi Wuhui. Unfortunately, if the two big sects had joined forces, they would not have been destroyed. The mastermind behind the war was a Zongyao. We will settle this debt sooner or later. Sumo smiled coldly. Commander Song, Commander Tang. The 7 battleships were no smaller than the 2 flying ships. Among them, there was a cultivator on each of the 2 battleships at the front. There were also 2 commanders in the middle stage of the break world. At this time, the 2 commanders, Commander Song and Commander Tang, were not under her control. Their consciousness was under Sumo's control. Commander Song, Commander Tang. The 2 middle stage break world people shouted again. They all seemed to realize that something was wrong. Who? The 2 battleships suddenly flashed with brilliance, and a light curtain that was hundreds of feet high directly blocked in front of the 2 flying ships controlled by Sumo. Those were 2 sea annihilation-grade defenses. In an instant, the 2 flying ships stopped outside the light screen. Actually, if Sumo wanted to break that light screen, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. However, when he saw the sea annihilation-grade light screen, he couldn't help but sigh. Back in the day, the Hongshan battleship and the Yujiao battleship both had the power of the Samsara level. Yi Wuhui also sighed. Now it's a little shabby. Commander Song, Commander Tang. The 2 middle stage break world commanders called for the 3rd time. However, they did not hear an answer. Bang! No Return to Sect was indeed well trained. Their 3rd call went unanswered. Without a word, the 2 warships in the lead fired array light beams. They were Sea Destroyer-level light beams. Hee. Sumo, who had been following the 2 flying ships, couldn't help but smile. Then, Sumo waved one hand, and a Samsara power dissipated. Who? The 2 beams of light instantly dissipated under Sumo's Samsara power. Huh. Sumo's move shocked all the cultivators. In an instant, the 7 battleships of no return to sect scattered. A red protective cover appeared on their battleships. The battle array was activated at the same time. It was a state of full combat. Dong, dong, dong. At the same time, a rapid bell rang on Cloud Return Peak. It was like a war drum. On the peaks of Cloud Return, thousands of murderous auras rose. On many peaks, the mysterious light of the array lit up. Yi Wuhui squinted and said, "What a strong murderous aura." Of course, the so-called strong was relative to the stars of no return. At this moment, the entire headquarters of No Return to Sect had entered a state of combat readiness. It was like a monster that had been lying comfortably suddenly flew up and showed its fangs. This is definitely an instinct that has been developed for millions of years, Yi Wuhui said. The sense of crisis of the stars of no return is far stronger than that of the demon sealing realm and the red dust realm. The demon sealing continent is drunk and dreaming, and the red dust realm is peaceful. Only the stars of no return still have murderous auras. Sumo nodded. Then he gently separated his hands. At this time, the 2 flying ships in front of him separated. That scene stunned the 2 commanders in the middle stage of the break world on the other side of the light screen, because they saw a black boat coming toward them. On the boat, there were 2 cultivators, a man and a woman. The male cultivator looked ordinary, but he had an extraordinary temperament. The female cultivator was wearing a blue dress, but her image was fleeting. A soul body? At the same time, the female cultivator was holding a white and fat pig in her arms. Who were they? None of the people present knew Sumo, let alone Yi Wuhui. What shocked them the most was that they saw with their own eyes that the green-clothed male cultivator on the boat gently pushed away the 2 interstellar flying ships of the sect of no return. Clang, clang, clang. The warning bell of the sect of no return kept ringing. At this time, many cultivators had flown out of the Cloud Return Palace. The leader was a middle-aged cultivator, wearing a brocade robe and looking dignified. Late-stage, Sea Destruction Realm. This realm could be considered first class in the current Dust Luo 3-star realms. It was the sect master of the sect of no return, Zhu Butong. Behind him were a few cultivators who looked like elders. They were also cultivators of the Sea Destruction realm. The power displayed by the sect of no return could be said to be the best in the Dust Luo 3-star realms. Sect Master, the two commanders called out. Since the Sect Master had appeared, there was nothing for them to do. At this time, as soon as Zhu Budong moved, he was already standing in front of the people of the Sect of No Return. He frowned and looked at Sumo. Unfortunately, he had never seen Sumo, but he could feel the power in Sumo's body. That was definitely an existence that he could not contend against. Senior, Zhu Budong thought for a moment, then bowed deeply. Sumo smiled warmly. Then he waved his hand, and a gap appeared in the light screen of the Sea Destruction realm, lifting something heavy as if it were light. Sumo drove the demonic ship through the gap, then stopped 300 feet in front of Zhu Budong. At this moment, all the cultivators on the battleship of the Sect of No Return held their breath. All of them understood that this person in front of them was an existence that they could not hope to reach. The warning bell stopped abruptly, because there was no point in warning. If Sumo took out her bell, she could directly turn the planet of No Return into interstellar dust. Sect Master of No Return, Zhu Budong? Sumo looked at Zhu Budong and asked. Yes, Senior. Zhu Budong was very polite, and there was not a trace of unnaturalness on his face. That was because there was nothing wrong with respecting or even submitting to an absolute powerhouse. To them, Sumo was like to an immortal. Senior, may I ask who you are? Sumo smiled faintly. I am an old friend of the Dust Sith 7-star realm. I personally experienced the great astral tribulation back then. Oh, Zhu Budong started, then smiled awkwardly. It's too late for me to have not experienced the great astral tribulation back then. I wonder what Senior has come to the Sect of No Return. I want to find a person, Sumo said. Who? The left patrol envoy of the Red Dust Sect, Zhan Ingbu. Sumo said. Oh, Zhu Budong's expression changed when he heard this. Chapter 767. The left patrol of the Red Dust Sect, Zhan. The rest of the No Return cultivators were confused by Sumo's words. They didn't know who that was. However, Zhu Budong and the 4C Annihilation Realm elders behind him paled slightly. They were the only cultivators left in the sect who knew Zhan. They were the only ones left in the sect who knew him. Sect Master Zhu, you should know him, right? Sumo could tell from Zhu Budong's expression that he knew Zhan, and that they had a close relationship. Zhu Budong hesitated, then nodded. Of course I do. Sect Master Zhan is my master. Oh, Sumo couldn't help but laugh. It was actually another disciple? He'd thought of this possibility before. He'd met Sima Yunyan's disciple on Red Dust Planet, Zhan disciple on Planet No Return. This was a kind of luck. Is Zhan still alive? Sumo asked. Sumo's tone made Zhu Budong feel a bit awkward. Master has been in seclusion all this time. Seclusion? Sumo smiled. Where will you seclude yourself? This? Zhu Budong hesitated. Senior, my master has been in seclusion for many years and doesn't care about worldly affairs. That's why he doesn't see any visitors. Sumo smiled playfully at Zhu Budong. So you really are his disciple. You don't see visitors on Planet No Return either. I wanted to see you just now but was stopped outside. Senior, please don't blame me. Zhu Budong said. That's the rule of Planet No Return. The rule of Planet No Return? Those two outer star commanders were carrying out your orders, so I naturally don't blame them. Sumo said with a smile. However, I'll have them clear the path for me immediately. They made the alarm bells ring. Don't you think you're just like them? Zhu Budong's forehead was covered in sweat. He naturally understood Sumo's words. If Sect Leader Zhu finds it difficult, then I don't mind letting Sect Leader Zhu lead the entire fleet to continue clearing the way for me. With that, Sumo smiled faintly. At the same time, his vision instantly darkened. Looking again, the 7 interplanetary battleships in the void actually moved at the same time. They all aimed the cannons on the deck at the Cloud's returning palace on the Cloud's returning peak. At this time, the commanders of the 7 warships were all standing stupefied at the bow of the ship. They had been completely controlled by Sumo and had lost their own consciousness. If the 7 warships were to open fire at the same time, the entire cloud returning palace would be blasted to the ground. Puppet technique. Zhubu Rong's face paled. He had heard of such a powerful and magical spell, but today was the first time he had seen it. Sumo's realm and methods were far beyond his imagination. Previously, he had thought that Sumo was only a sempiternal realm expert, but now it seemed that Sumo was definitely a rebirth realm expert. That was an existence that even the Dust Net 3 stars could not resist. Even 3 million years ago, rebirth realm experts were also experts of the Dust Net star domain. Zhubu Rong knew some stories about the great calamity of stars. At this time, he did not want to let the past repeat itself. A rebirth realm expert was enough to destroy a star. He did not have the ability to stop it. Senior, please calm down. Zhubu Rong bowed deeply again. This junior is willing to lead the way. Huh, very good. Sumo nodded. Zhubu Rong did not say anything else. With a thought, a black flying saucer appeared under his feet. The flying saucer was an immortal realm magic treasure. It was as smooth as jade and had a diameter of 3 feet. Zhubu Rong stood on it and bowed to Sumo again. Senior, please follow me. With that, the flying saucer turned into a stream of light and sped towards the southeast of the planet of no return. Sumo smiled and steered the demonic ship after it, disappearing in an instant. Only then did the commanders of the no-return sect regain their senses. In that instant, they did not know what had happened at all. They only saw the formation cannons of their warships aimed at Cloud Return Palace. The 2 galactic commanders were even more confused. They did not know why they had returned to the inner space of the planet of no return. Elder Son, what happened? One of the commanders asked. Elder Son, who had been standing behind Zhubu Rong, had a calm expression. It's nothing. That senior is a friend of the no-return sect from 3 million years ago. You do not need to panic. The sect master will take care of everything. Everyone, go back to your duties. A friend from 3 million years ago? Hearing Elder Son's words, everyone had some doubts. Because 3 million years ago, there had not been a true no-return sect. How could there be a friend of the no-return sect? However, they had all seen the strength that Sumo had displayed just now. Therefore, no one asked any more questions. Since nothing had happened, they each led their own warships and dispersed. It was a good thing that there had not been a huge battle. Elder Son, what do you think of the situation? Elder Miyahai asked after everyone had dispersed. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, we can't avoid it. Elder Son let out a long sigh. However, judging from the situation just now, that cultivator may not want to do anything to the no-return sect. Otherwise, he can turn us into ashes with a flip of his hand. And if it's really the revenge of the former demon race, then the other elders listened and nodded silently. Elder Son's meaning was very clear. If the demon race took revenge, then the doomsday of the planet of no return had arrived. There was also a group of mountains in the southeast of the planet of no return. Similarly, there were tens of thousands of mountains and huge rocks towered into the sky. If one was not familiar with the geography of the planet of no return, it was easy to confuse this place with the Clouds Mountains, because they were simply too similar to each other. What is this place? Sumo asked Zhubu Rong, who was leading the way in front. Thousand Cloud Mountain. This place and the Clouds Mountain can be called a pair of twin mountain ranges. One is in the northwest of the planet of no return, and the other is in the southeast of the planet of no return. Senior, you should know that this used to be the second planet of Chunluo. Legend has it that the black and white demon king of the Yuchi sect cultivated in these 2 mountain ranges. Originally, they were called the Black and White Demon Mountains. After my master took control of everything, he changed their names. Senior, look at the mountain in the middle. That's the Thousand Cloud Mountain. Sumo looked in the direction Zhubu Rong was pointing. Among the mountains, there was indeed a mountain with a flat top. However, this mountain was grayish-white, completely different from the dark brown of the Clouds Mountains. At the same time, there was no palace on the Thousand Cloud Mountain. There seemed to be a small town within a radius of 10 miles. There was a forest outside the town. There was even smoke rising from the chimneys in the town. My master is in that town, Zhubu Rong said. Oh, Sumo was slightly taken aback, because when he scanned the thousand-cloud mountain with his divine sense, apart from the ripples of the formation at the outermost area, there was not a trace of the aura of a cultivator at the peak. A mortal town? At this moment, Yi Wuhui also saw it, and couldn't help but look at Sumo. The corner of Sumo's mouth curved, and then she said to Zhubu Rong, Sect Leader Zhu, your master is undergoing the 5 signs of decay, right? Chapter 768. The 5 Blight. Hearing Sumo's question, Yi Wuhui understood. Unfortunately, she had not passed the 5 Blight yet. Maybe one day, after Sumo reforged her body, she would also pass the 5 Blight. But then, would she not be able to stay by Sumo's side? For a moment, Yi Wuhui's thoughts ran wild. She looked at the small town, her gaze becoming distant. Senior is right. At this moment, Zhu Burong nodded helplessly. Actually, Master's 5 Blight will be complete soon, so we don't want him to be disturbed. Senior, right now, Zhu Burong still did not know Sumo's identity, but he still wanted to plead for Master. However, he knew that his words did not carry much weight, so he did not continue. It did not matter whether he said it or not. He could not influence Sumo. In the infinite worlds, there were very few people who could influence Sumo. Sumo smiled. Is this why you have sealed the planet of no return and do not see any visitors? Yes. Zhu Burong nodded again. However, even on normal days, the planet of no return rarely interacts with the outside world. The power of the planet of no return is only for self-protection, although this power cannot withstand a single blow from Senior. But the planet of no return has always been vigilant in times of peace. Sumo nodded. Actually, he was certain about the danger of the planet of no return. After all, the chances of someone like him coming to the planet of no return were extremely low. That was a rule set by Zhaningbu back then, right? Sumo asked again. Yes, Zhu Burong said. The rule set by Master is that no cultivator is allowed to leave the planet of no return. If you must leave, don't come back. The cultivators of the Red Dust sect are not allowed to return to the previous planet. Why is there such a rule? Sumo was puzzled. We are not very sure either, Zhu Burong said. It is said that not long after the Demon Sealing War, Master reorganized the Red Dust sect and changed its name to the Sect of No Return. Unfortunately, I had just started cultivating and did not know the details. Later on, I asked Master. However, he doesn't want to talk about it. Only once, he said with a sigh, I can't go back. Can't go back? Sumo frowned. Why? I don't know. Zhu Burong shook his head. As they spoke, they had already arrived above the Thousand Clouds peak. Are there only mortals in this town? Sumo asked. Both. Zhu Burong nodded. Of course, my master is a cultivator who is undergoing tribulation. The others are true mortals. Those mortals were all sent here by you people who didn't return to the sect, right? Amen, Zhu Burong said. However, we did not force ourselves. This small town had been flourishing for thousands of years. In that small town, there was a completely different world. Inside the barrier, it's not exactly the same as what we see now. They didn't even know that they lived on a thousand-cloud peak. In other words, this is a world raised by no-return sect. Sumo looked at the small town thoughtfully. You could say that, Senior. At this moment, Zhu Burong took out a light red token. My master is in the 3 old houses on the westernmost side of the small town. This is the token to enter the Thousand Clouds barrier. Master once said that unless he comes out, I will not be allowed to take half a step into the Thousand Clouds peak. Today, I hope that Senior will allow me to not enter. Zhu Burong bowed and handed over the token with both hands. Actually, with Sumo's realm, that Samsara level barrier could not stop her. Zhu Burong just did not want Sumo to force her way in. All right. Sumo reached out and took the token, then smiled. Thank you, Sect Master Zhu, for leading the way. The sect is busy. You can go back now. I believe that the way you pointed out is definitely correct. Senior, don't worry. Zhu Burong smiled bitterly. How would I dare to joke around with the lives of the entire no-return sect? That's too serious. Farewell. Sumo smiled, then put away the demon boat. Yi Wu-Hui was a soul. She could not enter a mortal town like this. But she wanted to walk. Hence, Sumo draped a purple robe over her shoulders. Yi Wu-Hui looked like the ghostly figure of the past. No one could see her face. The little white pig jumped onto Sumo's shoulder. 2 people and 1 pig directly passed through the realm and entered that small world. Zhubu Rong watched them disappear, dazed for a long time. At that moment, he really felt very helpless. There was no end to cultivation. Previously, Zheningbu's realm had already left him in the dust. The great astral tribulation was a legend to him. But today, he finally saw a legendary figure. The power of the no-return sect could not withstand a single blow from such an expert. He did not know why Sumo came to find Master. He only hoped for a good result. With a long sigh, Zhubu Rong turned and left on the flying saucer. The moment Sumo and Yi Wu-Hui entered the boundary, the scenery in front of them suddenly changed. The sky was blue, the grass was green, and the sky was clear. At this time, they stood outside a forest. In front of them was a narrow path that led straight to the small town. If a mortal looked around here, they would not know that there was a sky beyond the sky and a world beyond the world. Sumo, do you think the world we live in is the same? Yi Wu-Hui suddenly said. HM. Sumo did not seem to hear Yi Wu-Hui's words clearly. I mean, our Yizong is also a world that is being kept, Yi Wu-Hui said with a smile. Huh? Sumo laughed. Just now, when I heard Zhubu Rong talk about this small world, I also had the same thought. But whether it is the 3 Realms galaxy or the Yizong world, they are all actually a lotus. A lotus? Yi Wu-Hui said. HM, didn't Bu Miaoyan tell you about it? Sumo said. No. Yi Wu-Hui said. Then maybe he doesn't know either. Sumo sighed. Actually, we're all born on lotuses. The cultivators who can plant lotuses are all peerless experts. Lotus Scholar? Yi Wu-Hui said. Lotus Scholar Stage 3 can plant lotuses on their own, the so-called lotus cultivator, Sumo said. Then who planted the Yizong world? What stage is he? Yi Wu-Hui asked curiously. I don't know. Sumo shook her head. Although Lotus Scholar Stage 3 can plant lotuses, that lotus is only a small world. The world is also evolving. I once saw a lotus cultivator in the galaxy. He was a Dharma Lotus King. Dharma Lotus King? Above the Lotus Scholar is the Dharma Lotus King. Every big world like Galaxy and Yizong actually has a Dharma Lotus King, and there's only one. I don't know who the Dharma Lotus King of Yizong is. Sumo laughed coldly. But I really want to know sooner. The destruction of Galaxy is related to him. Yi Wu-Hui said. Yizong swallowed Galaxy. That Dharma Lotus King is definitely related to it. Sumo said. The world is a lotus. Yi Wu-Hui pondered over Sumo's words. Following the small path, the two talked as they walked until they reached the entrance of the small town. At the entrance of the small town, there was a stone monument, Wufan Town. Chapter 769. Wufan Town. Sumo looked at the name of the town and couldn't help but smile. The Wufan most likely corresponded to the 5 declines. However, Sumo didn't know much about the 5 declines, because he had never experienced the so-called 5 declines. After entering the town, Sumo looked around. The town was very quiet, and there were some pedestrians on the central street. They were all ordinary townspeople. Besides, there were also some shops. The scale of those shops wasn't considered big, and they were probably mainly for the convenience of the townspeople. Sumo and Yi Wu-Hui weren't in a hurry and walked slowly on the long street. Although in the eyes of mortals, this was an endless world. However, Sumo's divine sense spread out. In fact, this small world only had a radius of a few dozen miles. Zheningbu definitely couldn't run out of this town. They entered the town from the east, and according to Ningbu Rong, Zheningbu's house was the westernmost. This entire street was only about 2 miles. Sumo and Yi Wu-Hui walked along the way and saw the local customs. It looked like an ordinary mortal town. There There wasn't a single cultivator. However, those townspeople didn't feel strange when they saw Sumo and Yi Wuhui. It seemed that they were used to seeing foreign guests. There seems to be a road in the west and north of the town. I wonder where these townspeople think they lead to? Yi Wuhui asked. Haha, we can ask. With that, Sumo stopped a middle-aged man carrying a load. Big brother, where do the roads in the west and north of the town lead to? To the west and north of the town. The man stopped and smiled honestly. If you want to buy something big, go to the west city. There's everything there. If you want to have fun, go to the north city. I guarantee that you'll be happy. With that, the man carried the load and left. Alas, how could there be a west city and a north city? Yi Wuhui sighed. All those are just their illusions. It seems that the sect of no return created a special world for them. A large part of their lives are illusions. Sumo laughed and said, all living beings are actually just like that. As the saying goes, everything is dharma, like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a shadow. Like dew, like lightning. This is how one should view it. Yi Wuhui could not help but laugh. Sumo, you're indeed a reincarnated mighty cultivator. You rebirth state almighties. Do you lie to others? Why would you lie to yourself? Sumo couldn't help but laugh loudly. The conversation between the two was full of Zen interest. They talked as they walked, and soon they had reached the west side of the town. It was a 3-room house with red walls and red tiles. From the looks of it, it was quite old. Its color was already a bit dark red, and there were a few cracks on the tiles. The walls of the courtyard were not high, and the gate was black. However, the door was not closed. It was wide open. Therefore, Sumo and Yi Wuhui entered the courtyard without knocking on the door. The courtyard was quite spacious, and the stone floor was also very clean. However, there was not a single person in the courtyard. There was only a black dog lying under the eaves. However, it raised its head and looked at Sumo and Yi Wuhui. It did not even bark when they entered. It yawned and actually went back to sleep. The little white pig's eyes lit up when it saw the dog. This little fellow had not eaten meat for a long time. However, without Sumo's orders, it did not dare to act rashly. Most importantly, the black dog's indifferent attitude saved it. Otherwise, if it barked, the little white pig would directly pounce over and swallow it. The little white pig deliberately bared its fangs and claws at the black dog. However, the black dog completely ignored it. It did not fall for the trick. This made the little white pig unable to act up. Is anyone there? Yi Wuhui asked loudly. However, no one responded. Is anyone there? Sumo also asked. However, there was still no response. Therefore, Sumo could only spread out her divine sense. The entire courtyard was indeed empty, except for the dog. Zheningbu is not here, Yi Wuhui said. It seems so, Sumo said. However, the gate is not closed, so he should not have gone far. Perhaps he'll be back soon. Sure enough, while they were talking, they heard someone humming a tune outside the door. When they looked again, a white-haired and wrinkled old man entered the courtyard. He carried a jar of wine in one hand and an oiled paper bag in the other, which seemed to contain braised food. It seemed that the old man's body was extremely healthy. When the old man saw Sumo and Yi Wuhui, he could not help but be stunned, and then immediately said with a smile, "Two distinguished guests. Where did you come from? Could it be that you know that this old man sold wine and meat today, so you specially came to accompany me?" The white-haired old man was forthright and did not seem too surprised at all. When the black dog saw that the old man had returned, it wagged its tail and came over with a fawning look. "Hey!" The old man placed the wine on the stone table in the courtyard and then opened the oiled paper bag. There was actually a roast chicken inside. The old man directly twisted a leg and threw it to the black dog. "Come, try it. However, we have guests today. We can't split it equally," the old man said with a smile. When the big black dog heard that, it did not make any noise and directly bit the chicken leg and slowly tasted it. Sumo and Yi Wuhui, on the other hand, stood in the courtyard without moving. Sumo looked at the white-haired old man with a very playful expression. Will the appearance change in the fifth decay realm? Sumo secretly asked Yi Wuhui. Most of them should be able to. Yi Wuhui said with a voice transmission. I heard that the fifth decay realm of a Tibetan cultivator is actually to turn into a mortal and then experience a process from life to death, and it may not be just once. However, if it is not perfect after 5 times, it will turn into ashes. Of course, there are also people who achieve perfection in one life. So, there are people who reach the fifth decay realm and become mortal. Mortal? Hee. Then the name of this small town really came from this. Sumo replied, in your opinion, is this old man Jiningbu? I feel that he does not look like him. I can't tell. In terms of appearance, he is naturally not. There is no fluctuation of spiritual energy in his body. Yi Wuhui said, however, the fifth decay realm is originally immortal. It is normal for him not to have any spiritual energy fluctuation. He might not even remember who he is. And Sumo nodded. Old man, we are just passers-by. We are passing by your house and want to ask for some water, Sumo said with a clear voice. Hey, just nice. The old man was very happy. I am alone and it is boring. Since you are here, there is no need to ask for any wine. Let us drink together. With that, the old man did not wait for Sumo to reply and took out 3 side dishes to go with the wine. Come, come. The old man called out enthusiastically, please sit. Old man Jun, do you only live by yourself? Sumo and Yi Wuhui sat down. Yi Wuhui's face was still covered and looked very strange. However, the white-haired old man did not ask at all. Old man Jun? The white-haired old man was stunned. Who is Old man Jun? Old man Jun, isn't it you? Yi Wuhui hid his face and said slowly, just now we asked in the town, they said that your surname is Jun and your name is Ingbu. Jiningbu? When the old man heard, his expression changed greatly. Chapter 770. Jiningbu. Hearing Yi Wuhui's words, the old man put down the wine in his hand and said angrily, Miss, who told you that? I'll go and find him now. Old Black, let's go. Then, the old man called out to the big black dog. When she looked again, the big black dog immediately stood up. Its eyes were bright, and they shared a common enemy. However, there was still a small piece of chicken skin hanging at the corner of its mouth. Huh? Sumo couldn't help but laugh at this scene. Sir, why are you so angry? Sit down first. You're cursing me to die early. Which fellow is so vicious? Then he must have taken a fancy to my 3 rooms. I'm still healthy and strong. How did I become a dead man? Dead man? Sumo couldn't help but be stunned. Old man, you said that Jiningbu is already dead? Yi Wuhui asked in surprise. Of course. The old man said. I didn't react when you said old man Jin, just now. Then, when you said Jiningbu, I realized who he was. Who is he? Sumo looked at the old man and asked. The original owner of these 3 houses. The old man said. Oh. Sumo frowned. Previously, she didn't care about the old man's words at all, because she thought that the old man was very likely to be talking nonsense. Sumo believed that what Zhubu Rong said was definitely the truth, because if it was false, they would definitely not be able to bear Sumo's revenge. Therefore, just now, she concluded that the white-haired old man was Jiningbu. Either he had forgotten who he was, or he was putting on an act. But now this old man actually said that the original owner of these 3 houses was Jiningbu. This matched Zhu Burong's words. When did Jiningbu die? Yi Wuhui asked. 30 years. The old man sighed and said, otherwise, why didn't I remember? Back then, I was the one who buried him. Although that old man Jun was a harsh person, he treated me well. Who are you to him? Sumo said. Neighbor. The old man said, back then, I was a poor boy. His parents died early and he didn't have a wife. So he did have some strength. Therefore, he often came to help old man Jun. He didn't have any children, so he gave me this house before he died. When I'm dead, I'll give this house to someone from this town. Unfortunately, he didn't meet a good junior. Where are you 2 from? Why don't you stay at my place? 3 rooms are enough. Sumo laughed. We might not be able to stay there, but we might be able to stay for a few days. Of course, the old man said with a smile. Then he opened the jar and poured a bowl of wine for Sumo and Yiwu. This girl, why hasn't she shown her face? Could it be that she's so beautiful that she's afraid of people looking at her? Oh, according to the custom of my hometown, it's inconvenient for an unmarried girl to show her face. Sumo casually made up an excuse. At this moment, Yiwu didn't say a word, because Yiwu soul had already left. She used a spell to create another body, wanting to go to the small town to verify the old man's words. Where did you come from? Could it be that you have something to discuss with old man Jin? The old man asked. We came from a faraway place, and indeed, we're here to look for old man Jin, Sumo said. Relatives? The old man looked at Sumo and said, You can say that. Sumo didn't want to explain more to this old man. You're not here to buy the house, are you? The old man said cautiously. I've already told you that old man Jin let me live here until I died. Hee hee. Sumo heard and hurriedly laughed. Old man, I'm not here to buy the house. Don't worry, this house is yours. No one can take it away from you. Haha, that's fine. My old bones can't live for more than a few years. Only with this house can I feel at ease. Come, let's drink. When the old man heard that he didn't want to buy the house, he immediately became happy. Okay, Sumo raised her cup and drank with the old man. But Yiwu still didn't move. However, the old man didn't try to persuade her. It was normal for a girl not to drink. He drank with Sumo, and it could be considered to be a good time. Half of the roasted chicken was already finished. Sumo? At this moment, Yiwu, who was next to her, transmitted his voice to her. She had already gathered information. How is it? Sumo secretly transmitted her voice to Yiwu while drinking with the old man. This old man is right. That's what the people in the town said. Jun Ingbu died 30 years ago. This old man helped Jun Ingbu a lot, so the house was left to him. His surname is Chio, and the people in the town usually call him Old Man Chio. Yes, that's what he said just now. Sumo said, I heard that many people in the town are after his house. Yiwu said with a smile, Jun Ingbu was considered a rich man in this town back then. However, he was usually mean, and almost no one was willing to interact with him except for Old Man Chio. After Jun Ingbu died, these 3 houses were left to him. How did Jun Ingbu die back then? Sumo asked again. It said that he had a serious illness and passed away after a period of time. Yiwu said, however, no one knows what illness he had. I also asked the doctor in the town, and he said that his grandfather had treated Jun Ingbu before. Jun Ingbu's illness was that his qi and blood were declining. How long did Jun Ingbu live? No one can say for sure. Jun Ingbu didn't interact with the people in the town, and he was a loner. If he didn't interact with people, how could he see through the mortal world? Sumo sneered secretly. However, that shouldn't be Jun Ingbu's first reincarnation. No, Yiwu said, I showed you Jun Ingbu's portrait. He didn't know anyone in the town. That means that it wasn't Jun Ingbu's first time in the reincarnation realm. Sumo, could it be that Jun Ingbu completed the 5 decay and left this place? I don't think so. Sumo said, Jun Ingbu created the No Return clan. If a reincarnation almighty came out of seclusion, there was no need for him to not show himself. Moreover, no matter if he succeeded or failed, once the 5 decay is over, this town will no longer exist. That means that Jun Ingbu has been reincarnated in this town. Yiwu said, That's right. Sumo said, Old Man Chio, how about we stay here tonight? Sumo said, Hee hee. Old Man Chio was already a little drunk. Of course. Old man, I'm lonely. It's great to have you guys to talk to me. You can stay here for a long time, but you have to take care of your own food. No problem. Sumo smiled. Sumo, what do you plan to do? Yiwu asked secretly. Tonight, we'll search their souls together. Sumo continued to drink with Old Man Chio, and at the same time, transmitted her voice to Yiwu. If we can't find Jun Ingbu in such a small enchantment, we'll be a joke. Okay. Yiwu nodded. At this moment, it was getting dark in this small world. Chapter 771. The sky darkened, and night fell. The day and night in this spirit formation had been meticulously set. 1 day and 1 night, a total of 12 hours. This was the same as many mortal worlds. After a few rounds of drinking, Old Man Shio was already dead drunk. It seemed like he was having a good time today. Finally, Sumo helped him back to his room. That big black dog actually followed behind them. So there was a place in Old Man Shio's room that belonged to it. This old man is really lonely. Yiwu Hue said, a man and a dog, a few decades, a lifetime. Sumo also sighed. As great cultivators, their time was measured in tens of thousands of years. They rarely experienced the pain and suffering of mortals. Thus, the 5 declines in Izong world was to let them better experience the meaning of mortals. If they could understand it, they could become immortals again. If they couldn't, their souls would be destroyed. That in itself was a bet. The little white pig looked at the black dog, as if he wanted to take a bite out of it. Don't bully it. Sumo closed the door, then took out an immortal pill from her storage bag and fed it to the little white pig. Only then did the little white pig calm down a lot. Otherwise, it would always want to have a taste of that black dog. Night fell. Sumo and Yiwu Hue sat in the courtyard. The night sky of Wufan town was actually filled with stars, dazzling and dazzling. Although Sumo and Yiwu Hue only needed to use their magic power to see through everything, at this moment, they were willing to believe that there was a starry sky above their heads. Sitting in the courtyard, they could hear Old Man Shio's snoring, the laughter of sleepless people, and even the occasional barking of a dog. This night was really quiet. Sumo, actually, the mortal world is really not bad. Yiwu Hue said. Really? Sumo smiled, then shook her head. Maybe it's because we are cultivators. That's why we feel this place is peaceful. Only true mortals know their joys and sorrows. That's just like how almost all mortals envy cultivators' ability to fly in the sky and burrow into the earth. But do you think immortals are free? Sumo smiled bitterly. Mortals have their own pain, and immortals have their own pain. However, if you become an immortal and live in the mortal world, perhaps you really will feel a bit more comfortable. Why? Yiwu Hue asked. Because the pain of the mortal world can be resolved with celestial techniques. Sumo said with a smile. For example, isn't it because you and I are cultivators that we can enjoy sitting here? As for old Shio, he is already sound asleep. If you and I weren't immortals, how could we be so relaxed? In their mortal lives, most people toil day and night. The suffering of mortals was no less than that of immortals, and vice versa. We have a sense of control here. And Yiwu Hue nodded without saying anything. However, Sumo suddenly thought of Songhai. He believed that Songhai definitely understood what he said. However, Songhai had actually entered the mortal world. Could it be that he really entered the mortal world as an immortal just to enjoy the tranquility and peace? Sumo didn't believe it. He had never had a clue about Songhai entering the mortal world. Today, he suddenly wondered if Songhai had entered another kind of immortal Tao. Soon, it was the middle of the night. At this time, everyone in the town had fallen asleep. In fact, with Sumo's magic power, he could search their souls at any time and place. However, if they were all awake, this kind of soul search might hurt them. Therefore, Sumo chose to do it when they were asleep. Sumo didn't make a seal, because there was no need to use this kind of Dharma spell on mortals. With a thought, his divine sense entered the dreams of everyone in the town. In fact, there were less than 3,000 real mortals in the entire town. Previously, Zhu Budong said that this town had been flourishing for thousands of years. However, there must be a special way to control the population within this barrier. The actual population was not that large. There were not many people, but the years were changing. As for the west and north cities that they mentioned, they actually didn't exist at all. 2,798 people. Sumo's divine sense covered everything. Not to mention that they were all mortals. Even the immortal almighty Sumo could search their souls. Therefore, the Dharma spell went very smoothly. Sumo's divine sense was an invisible ghost in the dark night. However, as the search went deeper, Sumo's expression gradually became serious. What's wrong? Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo's expression and couldn't help but ask, is there no trace of Zhaningbu? No, Sumo said. I'll do it again. Then, Sumo searched everyone's divine sense again. However, the result was the same as before. The entire town's memory of Zhaningbu was what Yi Wuhui found out today. Some older people still remembered Zhaningbu's harshness in the past. The appearance of Zhaningbu in their minds was that of a skinny person. When he was young, he was brave and fierce, but when he grew old, he was suspicious and ungrateful. That was completely different from the Zhaningbu that Sumo saw back then. Zhaningbu's death was a mortal's death. In that life, although Zhaningbu experienced many mortal intents, he definitely didn't reach perfection. In theory, Zhaningbu should have reincarnated in this town. However, Sumo didn't find any trace of Zhaningbu in everyone's divine sense. Could he have forgotten himself? Yi Wuhui said, that's possible. Sumo frowned and said, however, I searched everyone's divine sense, even if he didn't awaken and didn't know who he was during the tribulation. However, his previous memories should have been left in his divine sense. He can forget, but he definitely won't let me search him. Strange, Yi Wuhui said. Indeed, Sumo muttered to herself. A Zhaningbu in the 5-decay realm definitely doesn't have the ability to escape from my soul-searching spell. But why can't I find him? He left. Yi Wuhui was still suspicious of this. No, Sumo frowned. He must still be in this 5-mortal town, and I speculate that this is his last reincarnation. If he doesn't succeed, he will turn into ashes. So, he will put everything on the line. Then how do we find him? Yi Wuhui said. Find the person who appeared after Zhaningbu died 30 years ago. Sumo sneered. Can he really hide in the land of pills? Sumo, you're saying that Zhaningbu knows we're here and is hiding from us? Yi Wuhui said. That's possible, Sumo said. After all, he is in the 5-decay realm. Once we have evil intentions, he definitely won't be able to escape. So, it's not wrong for him to be careful. In the entire town, there are only 632 people born in the past 30 years. Sumo said. So few? Yi Wuhui said. This town is special. Sumo nodded. From tomorrow onwards, we will carefully search these 632 people. Sumo, could it be that Zhaningbu will transform into a female? Yi Wuhui felt a little awkward asking. Hee. Sumo shook her head and laughed. Did you forget about Mu Qingsheng? Chapter 772. Mu Qingsheng had yin and yang in her body. Hearing Sumo's words, Yi Wuhui smiled. I don't think Zhaningbu will. How can he be compared to the sword god of the 3 realms? Mu Qingsheng has a handsome male body and a beautiful female body. Sumo smiled but didn't say anything. Actually, he also felt that Zhaningbu wouldn't transform into a female body. After all, Mu Qingsheng's aptitude and talent were second to none in the 3 realms. Zhaningbu didn't have that kind of aptitude. Compared to her, Zhaningbu could only be considered an ordinary cultivator. They didn't gain anything that night. The next day, Old Man Shio woke up early. Sumo gave Old Man Shio some silver fragments, saying that it was for his expenses for the next few days. Old Man Shio was quite happy and didn't refuse. He said that they would continue drinking tonight. Actually, those silver fragments were just Sumo's illusions. Then, Old Man Shio went out. However, this time, the big black dog went out with him. It probably felt that the way the little white pig looked at it was a little strange, so it was safer to follow its master. The little white pig looked at the big black dog and snorted. However, the black dog wagged its tail and went out. Let's go out and take a look too. Those 623 people are enough for us to watch for a day, Sumo said. Then, he and Yi Wuhui went out with the little white pig. Actually, Sumo could also stand in the courtyard and know everything. However, he felt that it was better to go out and take a look. Old Man Shio didn't go far. It seemed that he was quite popular and could chat with almost everyone he met. Sumo and Yi Wuhui didn't follow Old Man Shio, but turned into another fork. After all, there were several roads in this town. The 623 people were all within the observation of Sumo and Yi Wuhui. They were all under the age of 30, and there were both men and women. There were slightly more men. The youngest was only 3 years old. In the end, Sumo and Yi Wuhui wandered around the town for an entire day and saw almost all of their targets. However, their lives were very ordinary. His daily routine was as usual. This confused Sumo and Yi Wuhui. Indeed, there was nothing abnormal about those people. They were the most ordinary mortals. In the end, Sumo suspected that Zhubu Rong was lying or that Zheningbu was really not here anymore. At dusk, they returned to Mr. Chio's house. Old Chio had already prepared the food and wine. For dishes, 2 meat dishes and 2 vegetables. "You two are back." Old Chio smiled. "Come, have a taste of this old man's cooking." Sumo had a few more drinks with Old Man Chio. However, Old Man Chio was a glutton for wine, so he must be drunk. In the end, just like the day before, Su Imo sent Old Man Chio back to his room. In the courtyard, night fell once again. Old Chio was snoring, sleeping soundly. "What should we do?" Yi Wuhui's voice was filled with helplessness. They had checked everyone in the town, and Zheningbu was definitely not among them. "Huh." Sumo smiled bitterly. "It seems that we really have to consider going back to the no-return clan tomorrow. Then we can bring Zhubu Rong here and look for him again. I guess that's the only way." Yi Wuhui sighed. "Zhubu Rong?" Sumo sneered. "If he lied to us, then the no-return clan will be in trouble." Yi Wuhui said. "However, he's not wrong. Zheningbu did exist in this town. However, he only passed away 30 years ago. Didn't Zheningbu say that he was not allowed to take half a step into the town? So, he might not know the situation here. So it can't be considered a lie." "No." Sumo suddenly frowned, as if she had thought of something. "What's wrong?" "This is a bit contradictory," Sumo said. Sumo said, "According to what Zhubu Rong said, he should not have stepped into this small town in the past 1,000 years. But how can he be sure that his master is in the 3 old houses in the west of the town?" Yi Wuhui was also surprised. "That's right. Unless they had an agreement that even if Zhen Ingbu reincarnated, he would not leave the 3 old houses. Actually, there are many uncertainties in the 5 decrees. I think that Zhen Ingbu should have left himself a backup plan. At least, the place where he went through the heavenly tribulations should be accurate. Otherwise, if there were any accidents, would the no-return clan search for him like us?" Sumo's eyes lit up. He felt that he had grasped something. "You mean that old Chio must be Zheningbu?" Yi Wuhui said. "But he clearly overlapped with the previous Zheningbu. Moreover, we've checked this old Chio many times, and there is no memory of Zheningbu in his divine soul." "Huh." Sumo looked at old Chio's room and couldn't help but smile. Old Chio's divine soul does not have any memory of Zheningbu. But we forgot that there's a living being in these 3 houses. "Oh." Yi Wuhui was slightly stunned, and then said in surprise, "You mean that black dog?" "Huh." Zhubu Rong did not say that his master must be human. He only said that his master is in the 3 Realms house in the west of the town. Sumo narrowed his eyes. "Isn't there only 1 person and 1 dog in this old house?" "Mfumph. Go eat that black dog," Sumo said coldly. "Mfumph." The little white pig's eyes lit up when he heard that. He seemed to have waited for this moment for a long time. Whoosh, a beam of white light, and the little white pig directly broke through the window and entered. Then, the house instantly lit up with a mysterious light. "Humph!" Roar. Suddenly, the little white pig's voice instantly became louder. Boom! The 3 houses directly exploded. The little white pig actually revealed the true form of the Dracophant's soul-devouring beast. Its tall body was like a small mountain, its fangs bared, and its wings were like the wind. And standing opposite, it was a cultivator in a red robe. In the ruined house, old Chio and the black dog maintained their original sleeping positions. However, their bodies were glowing with a faint red light. It seemed that they were protected, and the cultivator in red was none other than Zheningbu. However, he was not a real cultivator at the moment. Like Yi Wuhui, he was a soul. Sumo waved one hand. At this moment, the entire courtyard was protected by his dermic powers, forming a boundary within the boundary. Everything that happened here, the small town would not know. Patrol Zhen, long time no see. Sumo looked at Zheningbu and smiled coldly. You have a soul attached to the black dog. You really made it easy for us to find you. Sigh. Zheningbu looked at Sumo and couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Demon King, it has already been 3 million years. Everything that happened back then was done by the demon race. I was also used by others. Why do you still need to find me? Hee hee. Sumo shook her head. Patrol Zhen, do you think I'm here to find you for revenge? You really think too much. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it back then. Your Luo Kingdom's past has nothing to do with me. Then why did Demon King come here? Zheningbu asked. I only have one question for you. Sumo narrowed her eyes. In these 3 million years, have you seen Mu Hongxuan? I hope you can answer me truthfully, otherwise I will turn you into ashes. Huh? Zheningbu raised his eyebrows, then said slowly, I have. Chapter 773. Yes. Zheningbu's words jolted Sumo. When Sumo said, tell me the details. Zheningbu hesitated. His gaze was also somewhat wandering. There were many things he didn't know if he should say. Patrol Zhen. Sumo's gaze turned cold. I don't care what you're worried about, but this is the moment you should be worried about. Whatever I ask, you better tell me everything you know. If you hide anything, or if you lie, I will kill you. Not only will you die, but I will also bury the entire Luo second star with you. You haven't forgotten the great astral tribulation. I don't mind doing it again. Do you believe it? Sumo's tone had become even more awe-inspiring. 3-star Demon King. Sumo was definitely not a kind person. He would definitely do such a thing to find Mu Hongxuan. Hee hee. Zheningbu laughed awkwardly. I believe you. Then tell me. Sumo said, you've already wasted 2 days of my time. I can forget about what happened before, but you must tell me everything you know. Zheningbu took a deep breath. It's a long story. After the great astral tribulation, Wu Changsheng and I controlled the Luo second star. My left patrol fleet was almost unscathed, and I was already in the one-lifetime immortal realm. So, I was elected as the new sect leader of the Red Dust sect. Not long after, we gathered all our forces and started the Demon Sealing War. At that time, all of us hated the 8th mainland. That kind of hatred was terrifying. We thought that the monster race brought disaster to the Luo 7-star realms. So we killed all the monster race. However, the monster race on the Demon Sealing continent was still very powerful. So, that battle was very difficult. Wu Changsheng died in the Demon Sealing War. The last dozen battleships of the Red Dust sect were also destroyed in the Demon Sealing War. Fortunately, we won in the end. Then, we purged the Luo 3-star realms several times. Zheningbu smiled bitterly. In the end, there were no monster race on the 3 stars. From now on, the Demon Sealing continent will no longer have any life. Sumo and Yi Wuhui didn't interrupt Zheningbu. These words could be corroborated with what they had heard before, and they could judge whether Zheningbu was telling the truth. What about Sima Yunyan? Sumo asked deliberately. She's on the 5th planet of Dustnet, now called the Red Dust Star. Back then, when the war was at its peak, she came out of seclusion as a one-era sempiternal realm cultivator. I thought she would help me, but I didn't expect her to refuse. Why did you refuse? Sumo said. Sima Yunyan has always remembered Mu Hongxuan's kindness. Zheningbu sighed. Everyone has their own ambitions. I went there 3 times and wasn't invited, so I gave up. So, in a fit of anger, you forbade the cultivators of the mortal world from returning to the 5th and 7th stars. Sumo said. Ha! Zheningbu shook his head. That's for later. The Great Seal War lasted for hundreds of years. Although we've won, we've expended a lot of energy. At first, I only wanted the red dust sect to recuperate on the second star and develop slowly. At the same time, I wanted all the cultivators in the sect to focus on cultivation and increase their strength. However, the appearance of a person changed my mind. Mu Hongchun, Sumo said. That's right. Zhen Yingbu nodded. When I saw Mu Hongchun again, it was about 30,000 years after the Great Star Calamity. And the place where we met was this Thousand Clouds Mountains, Thousand Clouds Peak. Was she alone? Sumo asked. Alone. Zhen Yingbu answered. What realm was she in? Was she still wearing that red robe? Sumo asked. Actually, I've seen her twice. Zhen Yingbu frowned. Those 2 times were very different. The first time, she was still wearing a red robe. That was how she looked back then. However, she didn't have the same strong, killing intent as before. I'm not sure about her realm, but she's definitely above the reincarnation realm. What did she say to you that time? Sumo asked. At that time, she still remembered me. However, she didn't ask about the red dust sect. Zhen Yingbu looked at Sumo with a slightly complicated expression. Instead, she asked about you, the Demon King. What did she ask me? Sumo raised her eyebrows. She asked if you were still in the Chun Luo 3-star realms. Also, what did the Demon King of the 3-star realms look like? Zhen Yingbu's eyes showed a trace of doubt. At that time, I felt that Mu Hongchun's mind was in a mess, because she seemed to have forgotten some things, and then remembered some strange things. What strange things? Sumo asked. She asked me if I knew where Xiao Huang went. Also, did I know how to get to the divine Peacock Mountain? In short, her mind was in a mess. Zhen Yingbu said. What happened after that? At the end of the first time we met, she said fiercely that no one from the Red Dust sect was allowed to step into the 5th and 7th stars of the Chun Luo 3-star, or else she would kill everyone. Hee. I still remember her gaze. It was very scary. Is that why you forbade the cultivators from the planet of no return from leaving? Sumo said. Yes. At that time, I was already in the middle stage of the immortal realm. However, in front of Mu Hongchun, I couldn't even withstand a single blow. Her aura could imprison me. Zhen Yingbu let out a long sigh. After that, I changed the Red Dust sect and named it the Sect of No Return. The 3rd star of the Chun Luo 3-star became the planet of no return. In reality, as time passed, there was really nothing left for the 2 stars. What about the second time you met? Sumo frowned. The second time, it was about 30,000 years later. Zhen Yingbu was still frowning. However, this time, she changed a lot. Realm or appearance. Her realm didn't change much. Zhen Yingbu said helplessly, because I couldn't see through her realm. However, she didn't wear her signature red dress, but a green one. Mu Hongchun in green? Sumo raised her eyebrows and waved her hand, forming a mirror image in midair. Is it like this? The mirror image that Sumo summoned was the green Mu Jinghong that she met in the soul storage altar. Of course, it was Wu Er's appearance. Yi Wu Hui had never seen her before. That's it, Zhen Yingbu exclaimed. Demon King, you've seen her before? No, Sumo said again. Why did she look for you this time? It's about the past. Zhen Yingbu shook his head. She doesn't seem to remember looking for me that year, and her memory of the great calamity of stars is also very vague. She really wanted to know about Mu Hongchun, and she seemed to have gone to look for Sima Yunyan. At the same time, she asked about you, the Devil Monarch. Yes. Sumo let out a long sigh. His guess was right. Wu Er had indeed awakened. Moreover, she had even asked about him. Then she left? Sumo asked. Huh? Zhen Yingbu pondered for a moment. Actually, she didn't leave by herself. However, I don't know what happened. What do you mean? Because we met in the starry sky. She requested to see me in the name of an old friend in the mortal world. After she asked me everything, she wanted to leave. However, an unforeseen event suddenly occurred. What happened? Sumo narrowed her eyes. A green urn and a lotus suddenly appeared in the starry sky. Zhen Yingbu's eyes were filled with endless fear. Of course, there was also a blue peacock. Chapter 774. Lotus, green urn, blue peacock. Jiningbu's words caused Sumo's expression to change. I don't know what kind of power it was. Jiningbu's voice was trembling. It seemed like the scene back then had a huge impact on him. But the moment the urn appeared, I felt the same as when I saw the immeasurable ship during the great calamity of the stars. It was something that I could not resist. That green urn is on a white lotus flower. The lotus gave off an extremely strange brilliance. The existence of the lotus made everything around it lose its color. At that moment, I couldn't move at all. I could only watch everything in a daze. I was imprisoned. That blue peacock hovered at the side. It didn't do anything. In my eyes, it was just watching everything indifferently like a witness. Then, that green urn took Mu Hongchen away, right? Sumo interrupted. Yes. Jun Ingbu nodded. Mu Hongchen struggled a little. But it seemed to me that it was all in vain and of no avail. The green urn's power was unstoppable, and that lotus was even more strange. Was that green urn a treasure of the demon race? Sumo asked. He. Zheningbu shook his head and laughed bitterly. Demon King, I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. At that time, I only wanted to stay alive. So, I didn't dare to say anything, and I didn't dare to ask anything. Actually, I couldn't say anything, and I couldn't ask anything. At that moment, I was extremely afraid. I was afraid that the green urn would swallow the entire second planet, just like the immeasurable ship back then. Sumo nodded. She could understand Zhen Ingbu's feelings. It seemed like that green urn was at least a Lianbua, or even of a higher grade. That blue peacock didn't say anything until the end? Sumo asked again. No, Zhen Ingbu said. In the end, a red veil appeared in the void and sealed the green urn. At the same time, a voice came from the void. But that voice didn't belong to the blue peacock. It was like an oracle. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. What did that voice say? Sumo asked. A small star, a drop in the ocean. Don't ask about other things. Guard your own land. Zhen Ingbu said. Then, the green urn disappeared into the universe. After that, the blue peacock looked at me deeply, as if telling me to take care of myself, and then disappeared. The last thing to disappear was the lotus. From then on, I didn't allow the sect not to return cultivators to leave the planet of no return, and I never saw Mu Hongchen again. Yizong Demon Clan did not appear again. For the next 2 million years, everything was peaceful on planet no return. Sumo nodded. Demon King, I, Zhen Ingbu, have lived for 3 million years. My death is not to be regretted. Today, I only hope that the Demon King will spare the lives of my planet of no return on account of our past relationship. Zhen Ingbu's voice was low. I've already lived 5 reincarnation mortal lives. During this period, I know that living is not easy. Perhaps I shouldn't have slaughtered the entire demon-sealing continent. Then, Zhen Ingbu let out a long sigh. In fact, cultivators were also constantly growing. He felt guilty, so he always thought that Sumo would kill him. Sumo looked at Zhen Ingbu and shook his head lightly. Then, he waved his hand, and light filled the sky. Everything that was destroyed by the dragon-elephant soul-devouring beast just now started to recover. Come back, Sumo called softly. Hearing this, the dragon-elephant soul-devouring beast shook its body and turned into a little white pig, landing on Sumo's shoulder. Unfortunately, it didn't get to eat dog meat just now. It transformed for nothing. Patrol Zhen. Go through the tribulation well. If you can become a reincarnation realm cultivator, protect the Chun Luo 3 stars. Sumo said to Zhen Ingbu. Sima Yunyan died 100,000 years ago. She died. Zhen Ingbu was shocked. She didn't go through the 5 declines? She let go of all her desires, so she should be able to go through the tribulation better than me. She didn't want to go through the 5 declines. The great astral tribulation seemed to have made her lose all hope, Sumo said. I'm afraid you're the only cultivator from the Red Dust sect that year, right? Sima Yunyan is dead, so I'm the only one left. Zhen Ingbu nodded with a sad expression. You will succeed. Sumo smiled faintly. Pretend that I never came today. You continue to go through the tribulation, and I'll go find someone else. Don't worry, I won't disturb the Chun Luo 3 stars anymore. Goodbye. With that, Sumo waved at Yi Wuhui. The demonic boat appeared under Sumo's feet. The two of them rode on the demonic boat and disappeared from Wufan town. I'll send off the demon king on my knees. Zhang Ningbu knelt in the void, and his voice trembled slightly, but it was sincere. Sumo's departure seemed to have taken away the last memories of the Chun Luo 3 stars. At that moment, Zhang Ningbu suddenly seemed to understand something. In this life, he had finally reached the peak of the 5 declines. Finally, Zhang Ningbu stepped onto the reincarnation Tao. In the galaxy, on the demonic boat, Sumo and Yi Wuhui left planet of no return. Sumo, are we leaving just like that? But we haven't found Sister Wu yet. Yi Wuhui asked. She's definitely not in the Chun Luo 3 star realms anymore. Sumo said. Oh, Yi Wuhui didn't understand. The blue peacock that Zhang Ningbu saw must be the princess of the peacock race, Xing Luo. But that green urn shouldn't be hers. Also, I've seen that green urn before. That green urn must belong to a lotus warrior. That lotus flower, I think it's the incarnation of that lotus warrior. You've seen that green urn before? Yi Wuhui was shocked. She felt that it was possible that the lotus flower was the incarnation of the lotus warrior, but Sumo had seen that green urn before. Where did you see it? The soul storage altar cave abode. Sumo said slowly. You hadn't been to the soul storage altar cave abode at that time. Previously, it was in the front cave. But later, the front cave changed, and the green urn disappeared. Disappeared? How did it disappear? Yi Wuhui continued to ask. Actually, I'm not too sure either. Sumo frowned. Because I hadn't completely awakened at that time. One time, I was refining pills in the stone house in the flower valley at the back of the mountain. By chance, I found a set of mysterious incantations left behind by a woman in red on the wall. In the end, after that set of incantations was used, the front cave of the soul storage altar cave abode underwent an earth-shattering change, which is to say, it became what you saw before. Previously, it had a high platform, a long table, 49 red lanterns, and a large green urn. During that change, I saw with my own eyes that the large urn sealed senior sister Mu's soul. Sumo sighed. But I didn't know at that time that she was Wu. But who was the woman in red on the wall? Yi Wuhui said. Previously, I guessed that she was a shadow of senior sister Mu. But now that I think about it, it doesn't feel right. Sumo frowned and shook her head. Because, after analyzing it, there are still many unexplainable things. Chapter 775. Tell me the details. Yi Wuhui said. Take a look at this. Sumo took out the Dust Sieve Sutra from her storage pouch and handed it to Yi Wuhui. Other than the cultivation method and blank space, there are some words left behind. Some are written by me in the Galaxy era, and some are written by Wu era later. Unfortunately, most of them are not dated. The handwriting is scattered. It was not written by one person at the same time. Yi Wuhui opened the Dust Sieve Sutra and read it carefully. He could not help but frown. Sumo, there is no clear mention of anything here. It is just scattered words. Then how did you know that Sister Wu heir was sealed in the Dust Sieve 3 stars? Yi Wuhui asked. Because when the soul storage altar changed, her divine soul in green said that she would ask the fated person who obtained the Dust Sieve Sutra to come to the Dust Sieve 3 stars to save her. Sumo sighed. Now that I think about it, she did not say that she was sealed in the Dust Sieve 3 stars. Actually, if that green urn was really a Lianbo level existence, it would not be in the Dust Sieve 3 stars. But it appeared in the soul storage altar. Yi Wuhui interrupted. Yes. Huh. Sumo laughed self-deprecatingly. At that time, I definitely could not tell that it was a Lianbo. I do not even know what a Lianbo is. Oh. Yi Wuhui raised his eyebrows as if he thought of something. Sumo, what realm were you in at that time? What realm? Sumo thought for a moment. Divine Tribulation Realm. Divine Tribulation Realm? Yi Wuhui smiled. The Divine Tribulation Realm of the mortal realm? Yes. Sumo couldn't help but smile. After soul transformation was the divine tribulation realm, and after divine tribulation was immortality. Nowadays, the divine tribulation realm seemed to be something extremely distant to them. After all, Sumo was already a reincarnation almighty. Sumo, are you sure that everything you saw back then was real? Yi Wu Hui tilted his head and looked at Sumo. Oh, Sumo was stunned. What do you mean? You said earlier that a spell changed everything in the soul storage altar. Yes, and your realm back then was only deity tribulation. That's right. Sumo frowned. What are you trying to say? Yi Wu Hui pondered for a moment and said, I'm thinking, when you first entered the soul-storing altar, could everything you saw be an illusion? Illusion? Sumo was stunned. This was a problem he had never considered before. This soul storage altar is its true form, Yi Wu Hui said. Illusion and true form? Sumo could not help but look at the little white pig. However, the little fellow looked at Sumo adorably and then shook its head like a rattle drum. Oomph. The little white pig snorted. Don't ask me. I don't know anything. Did you also see the green urn at that time? And the writing? Yes, and the corpse of the adult dragon elephant soul eater. Sumo looked at the little white pig and said angrily, Why don't you know anything? Oomph. This time, the little fellow nodded seriously. Hee. Yi Wu Hui picked up the little white pig. Looking at the little fellow's current appearance, it was impossible to believe that it was a ferocious dragon elephant soul eater. Maybe it was also in the illusion, Yi Wu Hui said. Otherwise, I feel that the lianbua like the green urn would not have disappeared just because you used a spiritual art. Your Taoist technique should have only broken some of the illusions. Of course, this is just my guess. Sumo nodded. However, I feel that your guess seems to be reasonable. It seems that we have to think about it at length. Maybe we should return to the soul storage altar to take a look. Sumo, do you know who the original owner of the soul storage altar was? I don't know. Sumo shook her head. However, the owner of the soul storage altar must have been someone above the Lotus Night level. I once suspected that Wu Air had stayed there. However, it's hard to explain in the books now. Yi Wu Hui nodded. The world was a mystery. Often, when you solved a mystery, there was another one waiting for you. I wonder how many years have passed since we were brought back to the past by the immeasurable ship? Yi Wu Hui sighed faintly. Sumo, are we preparing to go to the divine Peacock Mountain after we leave the planet of no return? Sumo nodded. However, if we go to the divine Peacock Mountain, we have to make some preparations. With my current realm, I'm afraid it's not appropriate to go to the divine Peacock Mountain. You must know that Nine-Tailed Raccoon is at the 5th stage of the rebirth realm. That peacock princess has most likely become a venerable. My strength is definitely not enough in the Prajnar realm. It's a pity that I can't help you much. Yi Wu Hui carried the little white pig. However, Sumo, you still have Huang Ying in your Chinquan pouch. He can help you. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about him. Sumo said, when the time is right, I really have to let him out. However, he is also a soul and is currently in a deep sleep. It's time for me to cultivate steadily. After all, I need to advance to the venerable realm in 3,000 years. There doesn't seem to be much time left. Sumo smiled. Otherwise, your ancient lotus body will be gone. It doesn't matter even if it's gone. Yi Wu Hui smiled slyly. In any case, you can't ignore me. Of course not. Sumo smiled faintly. Actually, even without the immortal bathing ancient lotus, I believe that if I find Miao Yin or advance to a lotus night, there will definitely be a way to solve your problem. After all, a lotus night can plant lotuses and create a real world. Unfortunately, my cultivation is too slow. Otherwise, I would be able to solve even more problems. Your cultivation is slow? Yi Wu Hui was speechless. One must know that when Yi Wu Hui first met Sumo, Sumo was only a deity tribulation. Sumo's cultivation speed could be said to be unparalleled, because in a sense, Sumo couldn't be considered a complete cultivation. Instead, it was accompanied by a step-by-step awakening. However, all of that still couldn't keep up with his needs. The demonic boat flew fast, and the two of them gradually moved away from the planet of no return. In fact, Sumo was also considering whether she should return to the Pure Landstar Zone to have a look. After all, there were still many universe grand cultivators in Bayon City. If one of those people completely recovered their previous realm, it would be a great help. Therefore, the demonic boat's route was the same as the one they came from. However, Sumo didn't use a space jump. 3 days later, they passed by the red dust planet. Sumo and Yi Wuhui looked into the distance, but they didn't stop. Another 3 days later, they were about to fly out of the dust-net 3-star world. However, at this time, Sumo and Yi Wuhui found something strange. Where was the demon sealing continent? That continent was the gateway to the dust-net 3-star world. However, when Sumo and Yi Wuhui arrived at the place where they should see the demon sealing continent, they couldn't see it. Sumo couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. In an instant, her demon eyes opened. 300,000 miles away, the place that should have been the demon sealing continent had completely turned into a black cloud. It was incredible that the entire continent had turned into a cloud. And what shocked Sumo even more was that there was a girl in a red dress sitting cross-legged on the black cloud. Chapter 776. Let's talk about being scolded first. I'll resume one chapter from tomorrow onwards, because school has started. If I remember correctly, I don't seem to have written a single chapter in this book. Because of my updates, I want to have time to write a single chapter, so I might as well write a book. My brothers and sisters who read my book are all tolerant. I cannot be tolerant. I have no choice. Because my book is not good and the updates are not good. I persisted for a month and 2 chapters. If I remember correctly, the last time I was able to get full attendance should be 2 months before Samsara of Ichizo was published. This year, I am in my 3rd year of high school again. The reason why I can update this month is because of the plague and love. My original work is a lot less. Although I have been online classes, it is relatively easier. So, I think I will work hard for 2 chapters. Mountains and rivers, there are no manuscripts. These past 2 months could be considered as the most hard-working I've ever been in the past year. I can no longer stay up late to write 9 coffins because of high blood pressure. I belong to the kind of person who takes medicine all year round. Of course, most importantly, I know that I still don't work hard. Fortunately, I persevered this month. Perhaps, for the people who wrote, this was nothing at all. But, for me, even if it is possible. After all, this month, there is an extra 600 yuan. This is too important. The goal I set for myself in writing this book is to keep updating. I have basically done this. In January, I really can't do it twice, but I'm made up for it later. Comparing myself to myself, it can be considered an improvement. Of course, I have been writing books for more than 8 years. Many friends have become gods. There are also old friends who have stayed away from online literature. The wind and clouds have dispersed. The reason why I persist is that, first, I like it. Second, I don't know what else to do other than writing books, the unbearable lightness of life. Third, I've always hoped to change through writing books. So far, it has not been realized. However, writing books is a fulcrum in my life. The Japanese star, Tamayoshi Miura, is 53 years old and still playing professional league. He said that when he retires, it will be the day he dies. I admire him very much. I also want to be like him. Because of the plague and love, many people are depressed at home. I don't. Instead, I like these days when I don't have to deal with more people. Writing books, reading books. These are such wonderful days. If possible, I would even like to continue. Of course, I hope that the epidemic will end soon and the country will be at peace. Thank you for this month. Thank you for persevering. Thank you to all of you who have been tolerating me and reading my books. Suddenly, he remembered Run Xiaosu, thanking him 7 times in the first sequence. Thank you all. I'm not a god, although I want to be one. These days, he chatted more with his friend who wrote books. Actually, those who had yet to become a god all had dreams of becoming a god. It was the same for me. Whenever I thought about it, my blood would boil. Although I'm not young anymore, Compared to every day in the future, I'm still the youngest I've ever been. I really poured a lot of my blood, sweat, and tears into the 9 coffins, followed by the hidden samsara. Back then, he wanted to continue the story of 9 coffins. Even if it was a continuation of Dog-tailed Ferret, according to my personality, I would still finish it. What's more, it might not necessarily be a dog's tale. One of my characters you like, one of my passages you remember. That would be worth it. After all, it was enough that someone was watching. Finish what you started and guarantee that you would complete the book. This sentence will not change. There is probably half of the story of the hidden samsara. Of course, sometimes I had a hard time writing, and some parts felt like water. But, as I have said, that was the best I could have been for that chapter. I'm really sorry. At the beginning of February, a reader left a message saying, "You're the slowest author I've ever seen. Can you add a few more chapters in February?" At that time, I was quite touched. Because the updates are so slow, you still insist on reading it. Thank you. Originally, I only wanted to make up for the missed chapters in February and then add the main chapter. In the end, I persevered. In a while, there would be one more chapter. This month can be considered complete. Actually, the motivation is still from you guys. Many comments I read. Many comments I don't dare. I'm afraid of being scolded. Thank you to those who have been reading the book of Mountains and Rivers, old and new. I've seen every vote, every tip, every word of encouragement. Although I don't speak much, that's only because I don't have the face to see my elders. The road of writing a book will continue. Sometimes, I wonder when I will be able to have no scruples. I can only rely on books to make a living. That's good. Actually, that has always been my wish. Perhaps, everything is not far away. After all, I'm improving. Recently, I've been reading and studying. If it's the next book, I'll definitely jump out of the shackles of the 9 coffins. Because my wish has been fulfilled and my feelings have been expressed. I'll do my best to write a book dedicated to you guys. As for what to write, I'll think about it later. From tomorrow onwards, it'll be even longer. Although I didn't go back to school for classes, the school has officially started. My focus has to return to my work. After all, the college entrance examination may only happen once in a lifetime for my students. My book can be read slowly. I feel that those who can read my book are the most adorable and pitiful readers. A bit like the fans of the China national football team. Mountains and rivers, I'm sorry to everyone. However, although the wind and rain are ahead, mountains and rivers will fight again. I haven't written a single chapter. In fact, what I want to express the most is my gratitude to everyone. That kind of feeling is indescribable. Without your support, there would be no perseverance of mountains and rivers. This sentence is absolutely sincere. In the future, I will work hard and keep walking. Finally, mountains and rivers, thank everyone again. May all of you be safe and sound after the epidemic. February 29th, 2020. Chapter 777. Black Cloud, Red Dress. Those 2 colors were reflected in Sumo's eyes, and they were extremely eye-catching. And that black cloud was actually all soul energy. The girl in red was absorbing the soul energy. Who is that? Yi Wuhui couldn't help but ask. It seems to be an old friend. Sumo's mouth curved into a smile. At the same time, the demonic boat instantly jumped. They arrived 300,000 miles in one go. The demonic boat stopped outside the black cloud. Now, the black cloud was about half the size of the demon sealing continent. The girl in red meditated with her eyes closed, absorbing the black cloud bit by bit. But from a distance, it looked like a wisp. In reality, every single strand of it was like a great river, surging endlessly. She's cultivating? Yi Wuhui's eyes showed a touch of shock. Back then, she had followed Bu Miaoyan and could be considered knowledgeable, but she had never seen such a cultivation method. Was this girl in red absorbing the soul energy of the entire demon sealing continent to cultivate? Sumo, what realm is she in? 3 reincarnation realms. Sumo said, but with her cultivation method, it's only a matter of time before she advances. As long as there is dead spirit chi, she can cultivate and advance. and the Dead Souls star field is a treasure for her. Who is she? Yi Wuhui asked. A galaxy reincarnator. A galaxy reincarnator. Sumo's mouth curved. But I have to ask who she is, because I'm a little confused. Sumo's heart moved, and the demonic boat moved forward again. At this time, they were only 10 miles away from the black cloud. The girl in red slowly opened her eyes, because Sumo and Yi Wuhui had entered her alert range. The girl in red frowned slightly, looking at Sumo with a trace of vigilance and doubt in her eyes. Who are you? The girl in red asked. And who are you? Sumo smiled. Who I am has nothing to do with you. The girl in red smiled coldly. But I'm cultivating. I don't want you to take another step forward. I don't want to bother anyone, but I don't want anyone to bother me either. Hee hee. Sumo laughed again. Don't worry, I will definitely not disturb your cultivation. I just want to ask, are you Wang Yu or Shun Ming? Wang Yu? Shun Ming? Hearing these two names, Yi Wuhui could not help but be stunned. Weren't they Amu and Shun Yan's younger sisters? Back then, Wang Yu was poisoned by the tear of the river of forgetfulness and possessed by Shun Ming. The tears of the river of forgetfulness were originally unsolvable. However, Shun Yan later prepared a new Shura princess body for Shun Ming. Amu shattered the roulette, reforged karma, and transformed the 3 stars into the Milky Way. Then, many cultivators were revived. Wang Yu and Shun Ming became a pair of twin sisters. Previously, in the Milky Way era, they had been living with Mo Lang and Huanhua. The girl in red in front of him was actually Wang Yu or Shun Ming. Oh. The girl in red frowned again, and then her eyes directly reflected Sumo's real body. That scene was extremely magical. Ghost Eye. Sumo smiled slightly and thought to herself, unbearable ghost body. It seemed that her disguise technique was useless in front of her. Xiao Luo. The girl in red's tone was calm. Yi Wuhui listened to the girl in red's tone and felt that it was very special. This was because almost all the cultivators in the Milky Way who saw the Demon King of the 3 realms were excited and in awe. The girl in red seemed to be the first to call Xiao Luo by his name. After seeing Sumo, the girl in red was very calm and even a little alienated. Hee hee, it's me. Sumo smiled and nodded. At this time, he still could not determine whether the other party was Wang Yu or Shun Ming. This was because no matter which one she was, it was normal for her to have such an attitude towards him. Whether it was Wang Yu or Shun Ming, they were definitely the most favored people in the 3-star river. This was because their backgrounds were really powerful. In a sense, their backgrounds seemed to be even more powerful than Sumo's. I'm Wang Yu. Wang Yu's expression softened a little. Xiao Luo, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. Sumo smiled. Previously, I sensed the aura of the 3 realms. You were the one who left this continent a few days ago, right? Wang Yu asked. That's right. Sumo nodded and said, I've been here before. This continent is full of death, and there's no vitality. Hee hee. Exactly. Wang Yu sneered. So, I took their souls and helped them to be reborn. Living like that is worse than death. Wang Yu's words were very light. However, when it came to Yi Wuhui's ears, he couldn't help but be speechless. Even if the cultivators of the Demon Sealing Continent were drunk and dreaming, they were still living beings after all. However, Wang Yu's technique directly ended their life and death. This ruthlessness was not something that ordinary people could have. Oomph. At this moment, the little white pig stared blankly at the black cloud, drooling. The soul energy was a delicacy for the dragon elephant's soul-devouring beast. Its temptation was even greater than immortal pills and immortal fruits. Xiao Luo, you want to feed the pig? I can let it eat some. Wang Yu looked at the dragon elephant's soul-devouring beast and said calmly, Feed the pig? When the little white pig heard this, he was a little unhappy. Who's the pig? You're the pig? However, he thought in his heart, but he didn't act up. He still looked at Wang Yu with a cute expression. At this time, he must definitely have a good attitude. Otherwise, he would not be able to live with the food. Of course, he had to get Sumo's approval. Therefore, he looked at Sumo pitifully. Go, eat more. Sumo did not stand on ceremony with Wang Yu. Oomph. When the little white pig heard this, he immediately flew over happily. Miss you, I want to ask. Back then, when the galaxy was shattered, how did you reincarnate? Sumo asked. Devil darling, where are Huan Hua and the others? Reincarnation? Wang Yu shook his head. Xiao Luo, how can the people of our enchanted mansion reincarnate? Huh? This sentence made Sumo and Yi Wuhui stunned. Wang Yu's tone gave people the feeling that the people of Enchanted Mansion would live forever. Are all the people of the Wang family so domineering? Yi Wuhui secretly asked Sumo. The most domineering is Wang Han. Sumo said helplessly. Who is Wang Han? Yi Wuhui was stunned. AMU, Sumo said. Yi Wuhui was speechless. Since the people of Enchanted Mansion did not reincarnate, then, when the galaxy was shattered, where did you go? How did you escape from the catastrophe of the galaxy? Sumo asked again. My father used the Supreme Forbidden Map to open a passage to hidden treasure. Wang Yu's tone was slightly heavy, with a trace of sadness in his arrogance. But he was seriously injured. The devil is no longer the devil. Wang Yu let out a long sigh. However, he protected the four of us. We did not die. So naturally, we will not reincarnate. Devil darling, Huan Hua, Shunming and you. Sumo said, yes, you are indeed the devil darling. Sumo sighed. So far, you're the only cultivators that I know who can open a passage to hidden treasure. My father said that there must be more. It's just that we have not met them. After all, there are still a few venerables that we have not met. Hidden treasure is too big. Wang Yu sighed. Then, where are the devil darling and the others? Sumo asked. They have entered the mortal world. Wang Yu said. What? Sumo could not help but be shocked. The devil darling has entered the mortal world? Yes. Wang Yu nodded. Father and mother have entered the mortal world. Devil darling and Huan Hua have entered the mortal world? Sumo felt that this was the second most ridiculous thing she had heard. The first ridiculous thing was that the sea had entered the mortal world. The sea had entered the mortal world, and the devil darling had also entered the mortal world. Wang Yu saw that Sumo was puzzled, so he added, this mortal is not that mortal. Xiao Huang, one day you'll understand. Perhaps that is also your final destination. Chapter 778. This mortal is not that mortal. Sumo raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? Nothing. Wang Yu shook his head. Even if I say it now, you might not understand. Besides, sometimes I don't understand it myself. Where are Mo Lang and the others? Sumo asked again. In a place that you can't reach yet. Wang Yu said lightly. The level of that world is even higher than Yizong world. Then they don't care about the galaxy shattering? Sumo frowned. You have to know that many reincarnators of the galaxy are fighting to restore the galaxy. Different realms face different situations. Wang Yu looked at Sumo and said, Xiao Luo, do you think that the cultivators of the 3-star rivers in the past would be indifferent to everything? Hee. Cultivators of different realms face different opponents. Otherwise, do you think that there are no mighty cultivators of Lotus Realm and above in Yizong world who can kill all the reincarnators of today? I understand. Sumo smiled in relief. We can still struggle because there are people bearing the burden for us. That's good. One day, I will bear that burden. Sumo didn't ask any more questions. Wang Yu was right. Different realms face different situations. If Sumo wanted to know everything, she still had to increase her realm. His realm was still not enough. After all, he hadn't even reached the venerable realm. But Miss Yu, you are a reincarnator. Sumo frowned and looked at Wang Yu. Because I can feel the chi of reincarnation on you. That is the unique aura of a reincarnator of the galaxy. Hee. The corners of Wang Yu's mouth curled up. Xiao Luo, you are indeed worthy of being the person who could compete with my brother. I am indeed a reincarnator, but I didn't reincarnate when the galaxy was shattered. Sumo's gaze sharpened. What do you mean? I reincarnated in another world. Wang Yu said. Huh? Sumo was puzzled. The devil brought you to a hidden world. So why did you reincarnate? Back then, You are not only at the third level of the rebirth realm, right? Why must we start all over again? In the Star River era, I was already at the peak of the eternal realm. Wang Yu sighed, but I couldn't advance to the venerable realm because my state of mind is not perfect. My father said that my mental state is lacking, and I'll never be able to attain the exalt realm. Oh, Sumo frowned. You have an inner demon? The exalt realm of the three dimensions was naturally not something that could be casually advanced. In the vast three realms, supremacies were as few as the morning stars. However, Wang Yu was different. Not only was she the daughter of Wang Ju, but she was also the daughter of the Spirit Lord. With an innate ghost body, she could definitely become a venerable. The 9 coffins dispersed. Otherwise, Wang Yu would definitely become the second ghost lord and control the ghost coffins. I have an inner demon. Wang Yu nodded her head slowly. What inner demon? Sumo said. My brother. Wang Yu smiled sweetly. Yi Wuhui watched from the side and couldn't help but smile. Because this was the first time she saw Wang Shui smile. Yi Wuhui realized that Wang Yu was definitely a beauty. That kind of beauty had an indescribable taste. Perhaps it was because she was born with an innate ghost body. AMU. Sumo couldn't help but smile as she understood. Yes, Wang Yu didn't feel embarrassed. I miss him very much. Xiao Luo, you should know. Back then, I was hit by Shun Yan's tears of the river of forgetfulness, and then my body was taken over by that girl Shinming. Of course I know, Sumo said. Later, my brother shattered the roulette in exchange for eternal life. I woke up, but I never saw him again. He actually didn't return to the galaxy. Wang Yu's tone was somewhat resentful. But what does this have to do with your reincarnation? Sumo said. I want to find my brother. Wang Yu said, so, I must reincarnate. Huh? Sumo was stunned. Back then, I was in a closed world. My realm wasn't high enough. If I wanted to come out, the only way was to reincarnate. Wang Yu's eyes revealed a ruthless and determined look. Sumo, this Wang Yu is really devoted to AMU. Yi Wuhui said. Hee. Within the Three Realms galaxy, she is not the only one who is devoted to AMU. Sumo said secretly. Does AMU owe too many love debts? Doesn't the Holy Father, AMU, pay back his debts? Yi Wuhui smiled. How? Sumo secretly shook her head and smiled bitterly. AMU only asked for Shun Yan. Songhai only asked for Yun San. The rest of them were all empty love. AMU can only pay them back with love, not love. The city lord of the northern cold city is alone in 2 realms. The Songhai's successor guards the sacred mountain alone. Also, the former Black Veil woman hated him because of love. Sumo sighed and said, I heard that when AMU first entered the northern cold sect, Lady Purple Jade died for him. The bird that fell on AMU's shoulder is already a kind of comfort. Yi Wuhui couldn't help but curl his lips. For what you said, the Holy Father, AMU should be called Love Lord. Wouldn't many female cultivators lose their lives when they see AMU? Lose their lives? Many of these women have lived 2 lives. How can they lose their lives? Yi Wuhui couldn't help but be speechless. You're a man. Yi Wuhui was indignant. I'm not. Sumo shook her head. I only have Wu Air. I don't have any debts. I'm a loyal person. You? Yi Wuhui glared at Sumo angrily. At that moment, she really didn't know whether to be sad or happy. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You guys don't say bad things about my brother. Wang Yu raised his eyebrows. I don't like it. Huh? Okay. Sumo and Yi Wuhui couldn't help but look at each other, feeling a little embarrassed. They had used voice transmission, but they didn't expect to be heard. Ghost eyes can distinguish between true and false. Ghost ears can hear the good and evil of the world. Wang Yu said slowly and then glanced at Yi Wuhui. Who is this lady? Why are you a spirit body? My name is Yi Wuhui. Greetings, miss you. Yi Wuhui was very natural and unrestrained. My physical body was destroyed. My constitution is special, and I can't recast it for now. Oh, Wang Yu nodded. It's all right. Lotus scholars can all recast their bodies. If Xiao Luo can't do it in the future, I can find my brother and help you. Oh, Thank you in advance, miss you. Yi Wuhui originally thought that Wang Yu was an extremely cold person, but he didn't expect him to take the initiative to help him. I can definitely do it too. Sumo smiled. That's even better, Wang Yu said calmly. Also, she's from the Yi clan of the Three Realms. I think Bumiao Yin will definitely have a way, Sumo said. The Yi clan of the Muyun Villa? The Three Realms ghost genius Bumiao Yin? Wang Yu said. That's right, Sumo said. Hee hee. Wang Yu smiled faintly. Xiao Luo, protect her. Her spirit body is special, and it would be terrible if it was destroyed. However, I don't think you can count on Bumiao Yin. Sumo and Yi Wuhui were both stunned. What happened to my patriarch? Yi Wuhui hurriedly asked. Don't worry, he's not dead, Wang Yu said. However, I heard that he was suppressed by the corpse Taoist in another world. He's not even in the dust civ world. It'll be a long time before he can save you. Chapter 779. The genius of the Three Realms was sealed in a different world? This was the first time Sumo and Yi Wuhui had heard of Miao Yin's whereabouts. Miss Yu, who is the corpse Taoist, do you know which role my patriarch is in? Yi Wuhui asked again. The corpse Taoist is the founder of the corpse sect. It is said that he is a high-level Lotus Knight, but I have never seen him. I only heard that his puppetry technique is extremely exquisite, even comparable to Bu Miao Yin's. The founder of the corpse sect? Sumo and Yi Wuhui could not help but look at each other. Not only had Sumo not heard of this person, but even Yi Wuhui did not know him. Yi Wuhui only knew that there were cultivators with higher status in the corpse sect, but she did not know who they were. The corpse sect is extremely huge, and it is known as the #1 immortal sect in Yizong. Apart from the dust world, it also has its power in several other worlds. The corpse sect in Dongi Galaxy is only a small part of it. As for which world Bumiao Yin is sealed in, I do not know either. In any case, it is good that he is alive. Sumo comforted Yi Wuhui. One day, you will meet again. Yes. Yi Wuhui nodded. Thank you for the news, miss you. You have been looking for AMU, haven't you? Sumo looked at Wang Yu. Yes. Wang Yu nodded. However, I have to cultivate first. First, I have to reach the peak of the Eternal Realm. Otherwise, it will be difficult to protect myself in the Yizong world. The peak of the Eternal Realm was also the peak of the Rebirth Realm. That was the cultivation of a venerable one. In Wang Yu's opinion, such a realm could only protect himself in the Yizong world. Wang Yu's vision was definitely above the current Sumo. At the same time, Sumo once again realized that she had to improve her realm. AMU is sealed in the Lazuli world, Sumo said. Wang Yu couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Where did you get this information from? A person who calls himself the Guardian King of the Three Realms. Sumo said. Dharma Lotus Supreme King. Wang Yu's eyes flashed. You've seen Dharma Lotus Supreme King of the Three Realms Galaxy? Yes. Sumo said. Then you really are a person with great luck. Wang Yu muttered to himself. I don't know how many cultivators want to find him, but they can't. Where's my brother sealed in the Glaze Realm? Wang Yu looked at Sumo and asked. The white-robed Guardian King didn't say the specifics. However, it was Yizong who sealed him, Sumo said. Yizong Purifier, hee. Wang Yu's eyes narrowed, and then he laughed coldly. I know. When I have perfected the Eternal Realm, I will go to the Glaze Realm to look for him. Actually, Xing Fei and Han Bingyi have already gone to the Glaze Realm. Sumo said. Once I'm done with my business, I will go there too. Oh, Wang Yu heard. Are they all reincarnators of the Three Realms? What realm are they in now? Reincarnation is a normal state for Xing Fei. Therefore, he has already recovered to his peak. You know how powerful the oceanic white light is. Cyan light can kill venerables, so can the white light. Han Bingyi is at the peak of the Eternal Realm. She is not a reincarnator, but she came to the Yizong realm before the Three Realms were destroyed. That's not bad. Wang Yu nodded. The Yizong realm is too big, and you haven't met many strong cultivators yet. Their realms are barely passable. Miss you You can also go to Dongi Galaxy in the future. Now, it is called the Pure Land Galaxy. There are many reincarnators of the three-star galaxies in the northern chill city of the Pure Land Galaxy. Hee hee. Wang Yu laughed. Back then, I sensed something unusual in Dongi Galaxy. You must have summoned the power of the three realms. Except for you and my brother. I'm afraid no one else can do that. That's right, Sumo said. I summoned the remnant of the Star River to the Izong realm. It merged with the entire Dongi Galaxy and became the Pure Land Galaxy today. It's always good for a cultivator of the Star River to have a place to stay. Wang Yu nodded. If there's a chance, I will go to the northern chill city to take a look. There's one more thing I want to ask. Sumo said. How long has it been since you sensed the power of the three realms? 500 years. Wang Yu said. 500 years? Sumo took a deep breath. In other words, he must become a venerable in about 1,500 years. Otherwise, the immortal bathing ancient lotus would be meaningless. Xiao Luo, I have something else to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Please say it, Sumo said. You are too weak now, Wang Yu said slowly. It's impossible for your barrier to restore the Star River. Back then, you couldn't stop everything as a venerable. What's more, you are in the Izong realm now. Sumo was a little embarrassed. Then, she cupped her hands at Wang Yu. Miss you, I have learned a lot. Sumo understood that Wang Yu was telling the truth. His realm was far from enough. Even if he had many magic treasures, it was still not enough. When he faced the Peacock King, if Wang Shui hadn't intervened, he would have died. Before you reach the peak of the Eternal Realm, will you always cultivate in the Dead Soul Galaxy? Sumo asked. Yes. Wang Yu nodded. There are a lot of dead souls in the Dead Soul Star area. If we run into a few more continents like this one, we'll be doomed. If I encounter a few more continents like this, I will soon reach the peak. At this time, Wang Yu couldn't help but look at the demon-sealing continent that had turned into a black cloud. Only then did she notice that on the other side of the black cloud, the mountain-like dragon elephant soul-devouring beast was constantly absorbing the black aura. 1/5 of the entire black cloud had been eaten by it. Xiao Luo, take back your pig. Its real body is too ugly, and the key is that it can eat too much, Wang Yu said with a frown. Ha! Sumo laughed. Roar. The dragon elephant soul devouring beast couldn't help but roar. It thought, who are you calling ugly? Didn't I just eat some of your dead souls? However, Sumo had already waved her hand and asked it to come back. Wang Yu was someone who couldn't be provoked. The tears of the river of forgetfulness had made Wang Yu suffer for almost a lifetime. Therefore, Devil Lang and Huan Huat doted on him very much. Even Shun Ming had to give him some respect. Domineering. If Wang Yu got angry, he might even roast the dragon elephant soul-devouring beast. At that time, who and how would Sumo reason with? Umph. The dragon elephant soul-devouring beast knew when to advance and when to retreat. It instantly turned into the appearance of a little white pig and lay on Sumo's shoulder, looking at Wang Yu cutely. The meaning was obvious. I'm not ugly, but I'm not full. I can only let you eat so much. This, I feel a little heartache. Wang Yu frowned, but he was straightforward. She really didn't expect that this fellow could eat so much. This was going to affect her own advancement. Humph. When the little white pig heard this, it immediately drooped its head. This time, acting cute didn't work. Huh. Sumo laughed. Humph. Digest those just now. It's probably enough for you to advance to the rebirth state. Go and sleep for a while. With that, Sumo directly kept it into the cosmos sack. The dragon elephant soul-devouring beast was a divine beast. Even if it didn't cultivate like a cultivator, it would automatically advance in level. However, this fellow definitely gained a huge advantage this time. Miss you? Then I won't disturb your cultivation. Sumo cupped her fists at Wang Yu. In the north of the starry sky, there are still 3 stars. I have some friendship with those 3 stars. I hope that you can show mercy. Got it. Don't worry. Wang Yu said. Goodbye. Take care. Sumo and Yi Wuhui cupped their fists at the same time. Take care. Wang Yu also cupped her fists. The demonic boat flashed, and Sumo and Yi Wuhui instantly disappeared. Wang Yu looked at the place where the demonic boat disappeared and smiled faintly. Then, she formed a strange seal with both hands. In front of her, a special teleportation array appeared. Wang Yu pinched with one hand, and a paper crane appeared on her fingertip. "I met the Demon King," Wang Yu said softly. At the same time, she attached a trace of spiritual will onto the paper crane and entered the array. Mysterious light rippled, and the paper crane instantly disappeared. Chapter 780. The bamboo forest, the clear lake, the mist, the distant mountain. This place was like a paradise. Indistinctly, he could not tell how many houses were scattered around. Some ancient bamboo houses in the distance were emitting faint smoke. Mr. Wren was wearing a bamboo hat, carrying a fishing rod and a fish basket in his hand. Of course, he was under the lake to fish, because that was his usual state. The winding path was filled with the fragrance of wildflowers. Mr. Wren's residence was a little far from the clear lake. Along the way, Mr. Wren was in a good mood. At this moment, he happened to pass by a bamboo house. The bamboo house was very old. There was a horizontal plaque on the door with the words "Listening World" written on it. The meaning of the words was simple and unadorned with Taoist rhyme. At this moment, the door of the bamboo house was open. Mr. Wren couldn't help but be slightly stunned when he saw it, because he hadn't seen the door open for a long time. Inside the door, there was a long desk and a tall bookshelf. The four treasures of the study were all there. A 16 or 17-year-old boy servant, wearing a somewhat loose green shirt. At this moment, he was holding a long brush in his hand and seemed to be scribbling. However, the rice paper was dark and nothing could be seen. It was extremely messy. It seemed that the boy's servant was just scribbling. "Mr. Wren, are you going fishing?" At this moment, the boy's servant in green looked up and saw Mr. Wren and hurriedly bowed from a distance, very polite. "Oh." Mr. Wren stopped and looked at the boy's servant with a smile. "The Listening World Tower is actually open. Besides, why are you so early today, Shihua? Usually, you don't even get up when the sun is high in the sky." "Hee," Shihua said embarrassedly. "Today my young master was in a good mood and said that he wanted to get up in the morning to paint. So, I specially came to prepare and grind the ink and brush." Mr. Wren was stunned and asked, "Scholar, are you going to paint? That's really rare. When was the last time he painted?" "Ah." Shihua blushed. "It's been a long time, a long time. I think it's been a long time." "Huh." Mr. Wren laughed. "Last time, my batch of fish seemed to have just been thrown into the pond. Now it's almost grown into a dragon. If he still doesn't come to paint, this building will collapse. Today, he will definitely come." The servant smiled and said, "My young master said that if he doesn't paint soon, his brushwork will become rusty." "Scholar, when will you come?" Mr. Wren asked. "It should be soon." Muswa looked up at the sky. There was a sun hanging in the sky. The blue sky was as clear as a painting. "How about this?" Mr. Wren said, "At noon, I'll bring 2 fish, and you ask your scholar to prepare some wine. If I see a pig farmer later, I'll invite him and we'll have a drink or two. At the same time, I can also take a look at scholar's paintings." "There are fish to eat? That's great. I like the fish in Guanshi Lake the most." Shu Hua's eyes lit up. "Mr. Wren, I'll prepare a few side dishes later. My young master will be happy if you come." "Okay, that's settled," Mr. Wren said, and left with his fishing rod. However, he took 2 steps and returned. "Muswa, don't touch the scholar's brush and ink. If you make trouble, no one will clean you up." "Hee hee. Don't worry, Mr. Wren." The servant smiled and said, "My scribbles don't count. I just write casually. I'm not as good as my young master." "That's good." Mr. Wren nodded and went straight to Guanshi Lake. The distance between the World Listening Tower and Guanshi Lake was about 3 or 4 miles. In between, there was a medium-sized grassland. At this time, a man in black was holding a long whip in his hand. And on that grassland, there was a group of pigs. Those pigs were of all colors. Black, black, and white. They looked like a group of domestic pigs, but they looked quite clean. The man in black had a straw stick in his mouth. He crossed his arms and held the long whip, squinting at the group of pigs. "Hey, I'm a pig farmer," Mr. Run shouted with a smile. "And I'm a fisherman." The man in black was looking at the pigs and didn't pay attention to Mr. Run. "What? You want my pig dung to be your bait again? I don't have it this month." Aunt Hua took it. She said my pig dung is the best fertilizer for her flowers. "Bah!" Mr. Rin scolded with a smile. "My fish won't eat your pig dung. You pig farmers value your lover more than your friends. Aunt Hua asked you for pig dung, but didn't you give it to her shamelessly?" "Hey!" The man in black wasn't embarrassed. "You can give it to her. The point is that Aunt Hua will accept it. What if you give it to her?" "I won't give it to her," Mr. Rin said. "The world listening tower is open." "Oh!" The man in black was stunned and immediately smiled. "The scholar didn't die." "Bullshit. If he didn't die, how could he die?" Mr. Rin said. "Just now I passed by there and saw Muse Hua. He said that the scholar wants to paint." "That's good news." The man in black said. "I almost forgot what the scholar looks like. You know, my pigs have been out of the barn several times. So, I'm going to get 2 fish. I'll ask you out at noon. Let's go to the scholar's place for a drink." Mr. Rin said. "Okay." The man in black said. "Then I'll bring a few pig's hands. The scholar likes to eat that. I also want to see what that picky scholar is going to paint." "Done." Mr. Rin nodded. "But you're a layman. Why would you want to see a painting? It's better to bring a few pig's hands." "Don't worry," the man in black said. Mr. Rin didn't say anything more and left directly. The man in black looked at Mr. Rin's back and couldn't help but look in the direction of the world listening tower. Then a complicated look flashed in his eyes, and he said to himself, "The world listening tower is open." The scholar wants to paint? What's going on this time? Alas, the weather was originally good, but now it's going to be difficult again. My pigs haven't grown up yet. I hope the scholar can paint well. The man in black squinted at the pigs and muttered. Mr. Rin had already walked to the World Observation Lake. The lake was full of white lotus flowers. Those lotus flowers were the size of a bowl, without branches, crystal clear, and fragrant. The water of the World Observation Lake was as clear as jade, and the waves were calm. There were many fish swimming in the lake. Standing by the lake, one could see clearly. Mr. Rin's bamboo stool had been placed there. That was his fixed position. At this moment, he stood in front of the bamboo stool and raised one hand. Whoosh, whoosh, his hand directly emitted thousands of golden lights. Those were the fish food that he prepared. The golden lights fell into the lake, causing countless ripples. Looking again, the fish in the lake were tumbling about, jumping about to their heart's content, eating happily. Among them, a few fishes faintly glowed with golden light. "Ha!" Mr. Rin smiled faintly, sat on the bamboo stool, and gently swung the fishing rod. The fishing line drew an arc, and the hook fell into the water. And Mr. Rin sat calmly on the bamboo stool. His eyes fell on the long swim bladder, watching it float and sink with the waves. However, it didn't move. He knew that there must be a fish that would take the bait. That kind of fish couldn't transform into a dragon. However, at this time, in Mr. Rin's eyes, it was not the reflection of the lake, but the stars. They were fleeting. However, young Master Rin's expression was calm and languid. He was unmoved. Suddenly, there was a crane cry in the void. Mr. Rin looked up, narrowed his eyes, and saw a pale white crane flying over his head. "Ha! No wonder the scholar wants to paint." Mr. Rin smiled. "It turns out that it's a flying crane." Chapter 781. In the Dead Soul's Star Domain. Wang Yu looked at the disappearing paper crane and said to herself, "Xiao Luo, I hope you can have a greater opportunity and become a venerable soon. That way, you will be able to come into contact with more powerful things." The array disappeared. Wang Yu began to absorb the soul energy of the demon sealing continent, the third level of the rebirth realm. According to Wang Yu's estimation, the power of this demon-sealing continent was enough for her to advance to the sixth level of the rebirth realm. Unfortunately, there were very few such continents in the Dead Soul's star domain. Otherwise, if she encountered another 2 or 3 such continents, she would be able to reach the peak of the rebirth realm. Fortunately, there were still many resources in the Dead Souls star domain, but it would take some time. Wang Yu could wait. AMU was in the Glaze realm. This piece of news made Wang Yu's heart settle down. Wang Yu would definitely let herself reach the peak of the Eternal Realm before going to the Glaze realm, because that was the only way to save her life. Wang Yu's understanding of the Hidden Realm was far better than Sumo's. She sat cross-legged as she breathed in and out. Streams of soul energy were being absorbed by her like a great river. All of this was enough for Wang Yu to cultivate for a period of time. At the same time, Wang Yu thought, I wonder how Ming'er is doing? Wang Yu and Shun Ming chose to reincarnate together. Wang Yu wanted to find AMU, while Shun Ming wanted to find Xin Yan. In fact, they knew that AMU and Shun Yin must be together. However, they were separated in the reincarnation cycle. They had not found each other yet. However, they had agreed that once they reached the peak of the Eternal Realm, they would go to the ancient Lotus Star domain. As long as they were in the same star domain, they could sense each other's existence. AMU was in the Glaze realm. Then, Xinyan must be there too. When the time came, the sisters could go together. Phew! After sorting out her thoughts, Wang Yu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Then, she closed her eyes slightly and gradually entered a meditative state. Dead Souls Star Domain South. The demonic ship was flying across the Dead Souls Star region. This time, Sumo and Yiwu were definitely familiar with the route, because regardless of whether it was 3 million years ago or 3 million years later, they had all traveled this route. In fact, Sumo could directly enter the soul storage altar in the Dead Soul Star Domain. However, in the end, he decided to return to the Pure Land Starfield. Moreover, in the Pure Land Starfield, Sumo could also borrow the power of the galaxy to cultivate, which would allow her to achieve twice the result with half the effort. After all, it was a star region controlled by a 3-star reincarnator. There were still many unknown existences in the Dead Soul Star region. Apart from the Death Spirit Chi here, the other Spirit Chi was relatively thin. It would take more than 10 days to cross the Dead Soul Star region, even with the demonic boat, at full speed, because it was truly vast, unless he performed a space jump, but there was no need for that at the moment. Now, they could already see the scattered stars area in the distance. The shattered star zone was like a grayish-white ribbon floating in the Dead Souls star domain. After passing through this million-mile-wide scattered stars area and passing through the vacuum of the star region, they would reach the Pure Land Star region. The Dead Soul Star region, the Pure Land Star region, the White River, and the ancient Lotus Star region all belonged to the Dust World, so there was no real interstellar barrier between them. Sumo, we are almost out of the Dead Soul Star region, Yiwu said. Yes. Sumo nodded. In less than a day, we can enter the Pure Land Star region. I didn't expect that this trip to the Dead Soul Star region would take us 500 years, but we didn't gain much. Yiwu chuckled and did not speak. She understood that although she had learned some things about the past, and even news about Xiao Huang, she had not found the Plum Blossom 5 in the end. Unfortunately, Sumo hadn't found the Plum Blossom 5 in the end. It doesn't matter, we still have time. When you have cultivated enough, we will go to the Prajna world. Moreover, we will have Huang Ying to lead the way. He will definitely be a good guide. Yiwu said. Yes. Sumo nodded with a smile. He knew that Yiwu was doing his best to comfort him. However, it was also the truth. There were many things that could not be rushed, otherwise, haste makes waste. As the two spoke, the demonic ship entered the scattered stars area. Compared to 500 years ago, when they passed through here, there was not much change. However, when they looked at the scattered stars area now, their feelings were completely different. After all, they had seen the prosperity of the Demon Moon world with their own eyes, and they had also seen its fall. Behind every dust of vast universe, there seems to be a story. Yiwu sighed. If we did not return to 3 million years ago, how could we know the truth of the Demon Moon? How about Chun Yuchou? Most of the time, all living beings are tools of the gods. Sumo laughed self-deprecatingly. In fact, in the three realms, wasn't I the same? In front of vast universe, any powerhouse is like a grain of dust. Perhaps we can change a world, a region, or even a moment every 1,000 years, but we cannot control the entire vast universe for eternity. We can only take advantage of the situation and change with it. At this point, Sumo gave a long sigh. Perhaps AMU and I understood all of this too late. In front of vast universe, we are mortals. Yi Wuhui nodded and smiled. MM? Hearing Yi Wuhui's words, Sumo couldn't help but be moved. What did you say? I said, in front of vast universe, we are mortals. Yi Wuhui turned to look at Sumo. What is that wrong? No. Sumo shook her head. I was just thinking of Wang Yu's words. This mortal is not that mortal. Moreover, Songhai also said that he had become immortal. In front of vast universe, we are all mortals. Perhaps the mortals that Songhai and Wang Yu speak of are a higher realm. But in front of vast universe, they call themselves mortals. In an instant, Su Imo understood. But what kind of existence was that kind of mortal? The demonic boat moved forward. In fact, they didn't need to travel for too long in the million-mile scattered stars zone. But this time, they seemed to have used a few more hours than when they came here. After half a day, Sumo discovered that they seemed to have returned to the place where they had just entered. Because at this time, everything was exactly the same as before. Sumo's eyebrows arched. Sumo, something's wrong. Yi Wuhui was also startled. We seem to be going in circles. What's going on? At this time, Sumo had already spread out her divine sense. Within 1,000,000 miles, Sumo's divine sense could completely cover it. At the same time, her demonic eyes appeared and scanned through the entire scattered stars zone. Sumo could even see the other end of the scattered stars zone, the vacuum between two star fields. Jump! Sumo's brows furrowed as he shouted. Who? The demonic boat instantly disappeared and then flashed again. However, something strange happened. Sumo and the others actually stayed where they were, as if they hadn't moved at all. Or, in other words, they jumped out and then jumped back. Sumo's expression couldn't help but change slightly. They seemed to have fallen into some array, maze constructed by some mysterious power. Chapter 782. World Listening Tower. After Mr. Rin left, Muse tidied up the study. He threw his scribbles into the bamboo basket at the side. Then, he began to grind the ink and moisten the brush. It was a crane's cry. Muse raised his head and looked out the window, frowning. Flying crane? Long time no flying crane letter. Then, he saw the crane fly straight to the northwest. The northwest was no longer their village. After all, there were several villages like theirs on the outskirts of White Mountain. Grind the ink, moisten the brush, lay the paper, and burn the incense. The maids were quick and nimble, and soon they were ready. Although this world listening tower had not been used for many years, it was clean and spotless. The brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were all exquisite, and there was no sign of age. The sun was high up in the sky. Muse guessed that his young master was coming, so he walked to the door to take a look. Sure enough, a pale-faced scholar slowly walked over from the path. He wore a scholarly robe and held a folding fan in his hand, giving off an elegant and distinguished air. He looked to be around 30 years old, and his body was a little thin, but his complexion was good. He swayed as he walked, muttering to himself as if he was reciting a poem. Seeing his young master's state, Muse wanted to laugh but did not dare. Although Muse had seen him many times, he found it interesting every time he saw his young master's appearance. In the words of the pig-herding man, his young master was extremely coquettish. However, there were not many who could understand his young master's words, and Muse was one of them. In Muse's opinion, his young master's words were not elegant, but rather vulgar. Immortals are good. Immortals are good. Drink, sing, and sleep. Immortals are good. Immortals are good. Be free and happy. Immortals, go once. Mortals, go once. Jun Ruo asks, which is good? I say mortals are the Tao. Young master. Muse's ears hurt, and he could not help but call out. Hee hee. The scholar had already walked in front of Muse. Why, is my poem not good? Young master, good poem. Good poem. Muse smiled apologetically. Good poem? The scholar did not think so, and looked at Muse with a faint smile. Muse, you are insincere. Of course, he doesn't mean what he says. Fu Hua cursed in her heart, but she didn't say anything. The scholar chuckled as he entered the world listening tower. Then, he simply looked around. The teasing look in his eyes involuntarily disappeared. His eyes were deep and solemn. As the scholar entered, a couplet with vigorous strokes appeared on both sides of the bamboo door of the Tower of Listening. Heartless Tao, 3,000 gates. World listening divine, brush one universe. Young master, everything is ready. Also, just now, Mr. N passed by and said that he would bring you to drink with you at noon. He will also make an appointment with Senior 2. Those who fish and raise pigs are all here. The scholar's expression returned to normal. Muse Huan nodded. I've already agreed on behalf of the young master. Mr. Ren, I asked you to prepare the wine. Is it good wine or good wine? The scholar frowned. Mr. Ren didn't make it clear. Muse Hua scratched her head. Hee hee. Scholar nodded. Then prepare the wine. After all, we haven't seen each other for a long time. I reckon that those who raise pigs will bring their hands. Muse Hua, can you take out a jar of my green ant wine? Young master, is green ant wine considered good wine? Muse Hua grinned. Why, is the wine you usually give me not considered good? The scholar asked. Muse Hua was a little speechless. It's considered good wine. Then, young master, I'll go and prepare a few side dishes. Take your time to paint. The scholar nodded and then instructed. Muse Hua, just prepare a few vegetarian dishes. Otherwise, you won't feel comfortable eating too much meat. Got it. I'll go and prepare now. Muse Hua went out with a black face. Sigh, such a stingy master made him, the errand boy, lose face. Muse Hua left. The scholar looked at his back and couldn't help but smile faintly. Muse Hua, how can life be fun if you're not stingy? Hee. Immediately, the scholar put down the folding fan in his hand and grabbed a brush with one hand. However, he didn't write immediately. Instead, he looked at the wastepaper basket. In the wastepaper basket, there was still Muse Hua's graffiti. The scholar moved his mind. The graffiti that was cleaned by Muse Hua just now was unfolded. It was a piece of white paper. The ink on it was messy and messy. It was impossible to tell what was drawn. However, the scholar's gaze froze for a moment, and then the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Muse Hua, has your skill improved? The scholar muttered to himself. If this goes on, you'll be able to hold your own in a few years. The entire painting was filled with messy lines. There was no pattern at all. However, in the eyes of the scholar, it was completely different. In the eyes of the scholar, they were worlds. Although it's a little weak, it saves me some effort. The scholar picked up the brush and casually sketched a few strokes on the graffiti. At this moment, in the eyes of ordinary people, the painting was still messy. However, the profoundness behind it was well known. Whoosh! The scholar blew a puff of air at the painting. Looking at it again, the painting emitted mysterious light as if it were alive. Stars twinkled and colorful lights lingered. The world, listening divine, brushed through the universe. Lotus Soul, I've helped you. As for whether you can come out in the end, it's up to your luck. It's been a long time since I, a scholar, personally drew a painting. You should kindly accept this good fortune. The scholar moved his mind, and the painting instantly turned into light smoke. Dead Soul Star Field, Scattered Stars Zone. Sumo's magic boat stopped in the void and didn't move forward. Sumo, are we in an array? Yi Wuhui asked. Yes. Sumo frowned and nodded. This array seems to have been set up not long ago. This is because the entire formation is filled with a sense of novelty, as if someone had just stirred up this world. Before we entered the Scattered Stars Zone, everything seemed normal here. Oh, Yi Wuhui was surprised. Who in the Dead Souls Star Field has the power to set up a rebirth level array? A rebirth level array. Sumo shook her head and smiled bitterly. If it was a rebirth level array, how could it trap me? What's more, the demonic boat's leap just now should be able to escape even if it was a peak rebirth grade array. But we didn't succeed, so this is a venerable array. Yi Wuhui couldn't believe it. Yes. Sumo's eyes flashed with black light. A venerable array, and a very high-level one at that. This array is enough to trap a venerable. So it was specially prepared for us. Yi Wuhui asked. It looks like it. Sumo nodded. But as you said, who has such great power? To set up such an array, it must be at least a top venerable. It might even be the legendary Lotus Scholar. Then what should we do now? Yi Wuhui asked. I'll try again and see if I can return to the cave abode with the soul-storing altar. You come back first, Sumo said. Yi Wuhui nodded and flew back to Sumo's sea of consciousness. Sumo stowed the demonic boat away, and then his figure flashed as he abruptly leaped to the left. Chapter 783. 49 Steps by 7. 49 Worlds by 7. When Sumo took the first step, the world in front of him changed. This made him happy, because he was out of the scattered stars zone. So Sumo took 3 steps. That was 3 worlds, each of which was different. He quickened his pace. Sumo took 49 steps in a row, almost without any pause. Whoosh! After the 49th step, Sumo landed in the cave abode of the soul storage altar. Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Sumo felt a little relieved, because at least it meant that he could safely return to the cave abode of the soul storage altar. This situation was much better than when he was brought to 3 million years by the immeasurable ship. The cave abode of the soul storage altar was his last escape route. Sumo, it's good that we can come back. Yi Wuhui said. Yes, let me see if I can get out. So, Sumo moved and left the cave abode of the soul storage altar. Sumo took another 49 steps in a row. He returned to the scattered stars zone. Then, Sumo wanted to get out of the scattered stars zone, but the result was the same as before. In fact, this was within Sumo's expectations. He just wanted to give it a try. Then, Sumo drew in the void with his hands. Forbidden painting. Countless talisman seals spread out like a stream of water, and then they were continuously deduced. This was the last Dharma art that Sumo could use to escape. Space reversal. At this moment, Sumo stood on the forbidden painting and saw the layers of the forbidden painting spread out. They were extending outwards. At the same time, Sumo saw with his own eyes that there seemed to be a huge brush that was casually moving in the space created by the forbidden painting. As it moved, a complicated array was formed. The person who set up the array? Sumo looked at all of this in a daze. What kind of existence could set up an earth-shattering array with a brush? Sumo was proud of the windmill inheritance. Even now, the array formation that 7th senior sister passed on to him had benefited him immensely. The inheritance of the wind wheel was like a boat rising with the tide. As Sumo's realm increased, everything about the windmill inheritance would also increase. There was no end to it. However, even so, Sumo still could not understand this venerable one's formation. The thing that set up the formation was actually a brush. Whose pen is that? Setting up a venerable level formation with a brush. Sumo could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Even when he was at his peak, he probably didn't have that kind of ability. Above the venerable realm, the person who set up the formation was most likely a Lotus warrior. At this moment, Sumo had a more direct understanding of the so-called Lotus Scholar for the first time. Back then, if the Peacock King had fought with his full strength, he would definitely have been able to kill Sumo. And the Lotus warrior who had set up this formation could kill Sumo with almost no effort at all. Fortunately, this formation was not a killing formation. Otherwise, Sumo would definitely die a tragic death. Countless spaces connected into a tunnel that led directly to the past and the future. In fact, Sumo could even see the evolution of the scattered star zone in his own forbidden map. However, when he wanted to take a step forward and enter another space, he was obstructed. He could see the past and the future. However, he could not go through. An invisible force blocked him on this side. He could watch from afar, but he could not enter. Sumo shook his head helplessly. I can't get out of the space-time forbidden map, either? Yi Wuhui asked. Yes. Sumo nodded. Then, with a thought, he dispersed the forbidden map. At the same time, Sumo used his footwork again and took a few steps. Then, he arrived at the world where he had fought with Nine-Tailed Raccoon. In that world, Sumo released the magic boat again. In an instant, the magic boat jumped. This was the last thing Sumo could think of. However, after jumping, Sumo found that he was still in the same place. In that world, he was actually walking in circles. Sigh. At this time, Sumo finally let out a long sigh. This is an invincible trap formation. I have no other way. Haha. Yi Wuhui laughed. It seems that the other party does not want you to go out. Then let's return to the soul storage altar. I have a feeling that the person who set up the great formation has a deep meaning. I have the same feeling, Sumo said with a sigh. Unfortunately, I still cannot understand it. Fortunately, we can still return to the soul storage altar. Then let's go back. Okay. Yi Wuhui's voice had a hint of joy. And so, Sumo returned to the soul storage altar. The soul storage altar. In fact, this place gave Sumo a feeling of home. Because every time when he was in danger, he could return here. Moreover, the spirit energy here was always so thick. In fact, this place was very suitable for cultivation. Sumo landed in the front cave. Looking at the star map at the top of the cave, his expression slightly focused. The 49 brightest stars were still shining. However, Sumo did not know which world he would go to next. Life was like floating duckweed. Sumo's thoughts moved. He released Little White Pig and Blackwing Godhong. Little White Pig had absorbed a lot of dead soul energy in the past few days. His entire body seemed to have grown fat and round. The soul storage altar, that was a place that he dreamed of. When that fellow was released, he went straight to the Batcave. Blackwing Godhong was much calmer than him. He walked proudly to the Batcave. Yi Wuhui also flew out of Sumo's sea of consciousness. It seems that we will have to spend some time here, Sumo said helplessly. If our realms are not high enough, it will be very difficult for us to leave. Amen. Yi Wuhui nodded. Her eyes were full of smiles. Then everyone should cultivate well. I hope you reach the venerable realm soon. I have to cultivate well. Sumo did not pay attention to Yi Wuhui's expression. Instead, she thought of Wang Yu's words. Xiao Luo, you are too weak. Right now, he was trapped in the formation. Maybe this was a warning for him. Only cultivation could give one everything. This was something Sumo had realized a long time ago. But his realm was not high enough. In truth, Sumo needed this opportunity to tidy up and cultivate in peace. Since they could not leave, then they should start cultivating. Sumo and Yi Wuhui went straight to the Batcave. The stone house, the ancient well, and the flower bed were all there. Everything was the same as before. However, after 500 years, the immortal fruits in the flower bed seemed to be a little redder. Looking again, the little white pig was actually standing in front of the flower bed like a puppy, sticking out its tongue. Its tail, which was less than 3 inches long, could actually shake lightly. That fellow looked at the immortal fruits, drooling. At the same time, it turned back to look at Sumo pitifully. Hei Yuhong chose the place where he had stayed before and stood proudly on one leg. If only you were a dog. Sumo looked at the little white pig and said, that way, you might be even cuter. Whoosh! Just as Sumo's voice fell, the little white pig's body suddenly emitted a white light. When he looked again, a chubby white puppy appeared in front of Suemo. This caused Hei Yuhong, who was far away, to turn his head. Where was the dignity of a divine beast? In order to please its master, the little white pig was trying its best. This caused Sumo to be a little stunned. Was it necessary? He was just saying it casually. However, the little white pig was thick-skinned and actually wagged its tail with all its might. However, no matter how it wagged its tail, it looked like a pig's tail to Sumo. Hee hee. Yi Wuhue laughed uncontrollably. Sumo quickly picked the fruits for it. Sumo was also speechless. With a wave of her hand, she directly plucked many fruits, divided them into 2 portions, and placed them in front of the little white pig and Hei Yuhong respectively. Oomph. You can change back. I feel that I still prefer your pig-like appearance, Sumo said helplessly. Chapter 784. Oomph. The little white pig munched on the immortal fruit and turned back into a cute pig. However, he still looked up at Sumo from time to time. He chewed on the immortal fruit, and his eyes were full of flattery. The meaning in his eyes was, "Master, you can have anything you want. As long as there are immortal fruits, I can change 72 forms." Sumo was speechless. Yi Wuhue snickered at the side. For some reason, Yi Wuhue liked the feeling in the soul storage altar more. Perhaps it was because this place was isolated from the world, safe and at ease. At this moment, Sumo walked to the pond where the immortal bathing ancient lotus was planted. It had been more than 500 years since the last time. In the pond, the immortal bathing ancient lotus was slender and elegant, and its fragrance spread in all directions. The white lotus was the size of a bowl, and it was crystal clear. The stamen in the middle seemed to have grown a little. However, overall, the immortal bathing ancient lotus did not change much in the past 500 years. It seemed to have reached a plateau. Sumo understood that the immortal bathing ancient lotus did not lack anything. It only lacked the last bit of his reincarnation soul energy. However, that reincarnation soul energy could only be extracted when he became a venerable one. Counting with his fingers, half of the 3,000 years had passed. In the remaining 1,500 years, Sumo had to become a venerable one. Otherwise, the immortal bathing ancient lotus would be useless. Yi Wuhue was not worried at all. Instead, he was looking forward to it. It was good if the immortal bathing ancient lotus did not succeed. However, Sumo did not think that way. He must nurture the immortal bathing ancient lotus and forge an immortal body for Yi Wuhue. Therefore, the remaining time seemed to be a little tight for Sumo, who was trapped in the soul storage altar. However, Sumo was still confident. After all, it was not an ordinary cultivation, but a kind of awakening cultivation. After looking at the immortal bathing ancient lotus, Sumo turned around and entered the flower garden. Only Sumo could enter the flower garden of the soul storage altar. Regarding this, the little white pig had cursed in his heart countless times. After all, it felt that it had arrived before Sumo. So why could he enter while it couldn't? Of course, it also knew that it was Sumo's arrival that had revived the flower bed. Otherwise, this place would just be a flower valley filled with death. Therefore, it endured it as long as it could eat immortal fruits. Furthermore, who asked him to serve him as his master? If I suffer a loss, so be it. Sumo did not pay attention to the other immortal herbs and immortal trees in the flower bed. He was only concerned about the red spider lily at the bottom of the black cliff. Now, the bottom of the black cliff was actually a small netherworld. Black Marsh, White Island, River of Forgetfulness, and so on were all available. Perhaps, compared to the past, regardless of whether they were big or small, they only lacked the Nether Lord, who was sitting on the Black Island. Within the small world, the 7 saplings were uneven. However, they seemed to have grown an inch taller. The last 2 seeds that had sprouted were now almost 2 inches tall. However, Sumo understood that if they were to grow naturally, it would take tens of thousands of years before they became flowers. The red spider lily was far older than the ancient, immortal bathing ancient lotus. Right now, this red spider lily still had to rely on Sumo's final realm to mature. Looking at the red spider lily, Sumo always had a gratified smile on his face. However, this time, Sumo did not use his dermic powers to help it grow. After all, he was going to stay in this soul storage altar for a period of time. There was no rush. The condition of the 2 rare flowers was not bad. Comparatively, Sumo felt more at ease. Then, he walked out of the flower bed. Sumo, What did you plant at the bottom of the black cliff? I see that you are very concerned about it. Yi Wuhui's words were a little sour, because she could see it from Sumo's eyes. It seemed that Sumo cared more about the flowers and plants at the bottom of the black cliff. Previously, Yi Wuhui was a little curious, but he had never asked. Today was the first time he asked. Oh, hee. Sumo said, they were my former companions of the three realms. I want them to be resurrected, and then fight with me to restore the Milky Way. Companions of the three realms. Yi Wuhui couldn't help but be surprised. Sumo, you can actually plant the reincarnators of the three realms? What kind of heaven-defying magic is that? Plant cultivators? That was really heaven-defying. It was much more powerful than the puppet technique. Sumo, why didn't you tell me earlier that you knew such a great magic? Yi Wuhui said, quickly tell me, who did you plant? The Demon Lord? It must be the Demon Lord. I heard that back then you had quite a relationship with the Demon Lord and almost succeeded in possession. What nonsense is this? If I could plant the Demon Lord, why would there be a hidden world? Sumo said, it's fine if it's not the Demon Lord. You can also plant one of the other venerables. Yi Wuhui said, Ghost Lord? Hee. I can't believe you thought of planting cultivators and venerables. Sumo said impatiently, if cultivators could be planted, wouldn't they become cabbages for mortals? I didn't plant cultivators. Hee. Yi Wuhui laughed. She also felt that her idea was a bit too creative. But Sumo, didn't you say that lotus cultivators can plant lotuses? One lotus, one world, so I think it's possible to plant cultivators. I planted red spider lilies. Sumo shook her head. She didn't continue to argue with Yi Wuhui. She smiled faintly. You should have heard about this from Bumyaotian, right? Red spider lilies? Yi Wuhui said, you're talking about the white red spider lilies, right? They bloom for 1,000 years and wilt for 1,000 years. The flowers and leaves will never meet. Love is not karma, but fate determines life and death. Yes, that's right. Sumo smiled. Grandmaster said that they were born under the feet of the dark supremacy, and that they were born before the three realms? That's right. Sumo nodded again. They once bloomed under my feet, and they accompanied me for life. In the three realms, many people call the meditation cultivators in white. So I want them to be reborn here. I planted red spider lilies. As long as I don't die, the red spider lilies will not perish. Sumo's eyes were dancing with flames. At that moment, he looked at the small world under the black cliff. He seemed to see the red spider siblings who had once fought for him. Yi Wuhui listened and nodded. She had heard of the story of the red spider lilies. Although the red spider lilies had flower bodies, they were also powerful cultivators. They had powerful dermic powers, and each had their own special abilities. The devil's flower and the red spider lilies. They were two of the greatest flowers in the three realms galaxy. Listening to Sumo's words, looking at Sumo's expression, and thinking about the story of the 7 red spider siblings, Yi Wuhui's heart was filled with longing. How delightful would it be to follow her to the ends of the world? Have they all fought side by side with you? Yi Wuhui asked. Yes. Sumo nodded, then let out a long sigh. They all died for me. Fighting for the supremacies should be an honor. Yi Wuhui looked at the small world under the black cliff. They must have no regrets. They will still follow you. Actually, I'm nothing. Fighting for the 3-star river is an honor, Sumo said slowly. In the past, I always thought that I was the one who created the 3 realms and controlled karma. What about now? Yi Wuhui asked. Now, I understand that it was actually the 3 realms that gave birth to me, and I am the fundamental karma of the 3 realms. Sumo smiled. Or perhaps I really am the Lotus Soul. So, I want to fight for the 3 realms galaxy, just like the mother that gave birth to me and the earth that raised me. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.